DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, our next guests have been working closely with celebrities and MPs to help clean up our planet.
Very important. Think Ocean was founded in 2021 with two main goals. One, educating the next generation to make sure that they know when they're growing up that naturally we have to take care of the planet and cleaning pollution that's already in the environment.
Well, joining us now to tell us more is Think Ocean's founder, Hugo Valdez-Vera, and the co-founder, Nolene Mariappan. Really good to see you both this morning. So, Nolene, let's start with you. What is Think Ocean and why did you want to start this back in 2021?
Yes, so Hugo had actually been working on the environment and climate action for quite a long time. When he moved to the UK, he realised that there was a growing problem with plastic pollution and that more needed to be done because people weren't actually seeing the link between plastic, the impact on the environment and climate change. So he founded the organisation and I joined him with three goals, really. Education, looking at technology to scale solutions and looking at how we develop more circular economy programmes. So actually looking at reusing, recycling, actually creating local economies from what people would consider waste.
Hugo, just how bad is plastic pollution around the world, and especially here in the UK?
Well, it is bad, but we don't know the extent of how bad it is. You know, this is not much interest from the bigger players or, some government for us to know every detail of the pollution. So if we know that is from 1 to 10 is 2, probably it's about 6.
Oh.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. It's just gone 3 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me for the next few hours, co-founder of Novara Media, Aram Bastani, and former co-deputy leader of Reform UK, Ben Habib. Breaking news, Nigel Farage has responded. Now, this is a surprise, as Elon Musk tweeted the Reform Party needs a new leader. Farage doesn't have what it takes. Nigel Farage was confident of the tech billionaire's support yesterday when I spoke to him.
Could he possibly be a donor to the party? Yes. Is he supportive of the party? Absolutely. Does he support me personally? No question about that. If he does donate money, he'll have to do it legally through a UK company. But I'll tell you something, whether he donates money to us or not, he makes us, with a young generation of people who view him as a hero figure, he makes us look cool. And I'll tell you what, there isn't much of that around in British politics these days.
So for my Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is Nigel Farage fit to be Reform UK's leader? And I've got to pull up on X asking you that very question, so cast your vote now. Coming up in my niggle, I'll be taking the government head-on, as nearly a third of all Britons expect Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer not even to last a full year. My prediction, Sir Keir Starmer will be out in 6 months. In the interview, I'll be speaking to divorce coach Sarah Davidson, as tomorrow marks the day most couples get divorced. She'll give advice on how to have a good separation. A lot of people sick and tired of the people they've been hanging out with over Christmas for the last few days. I know how they feel. But before we get started, let's get your latest news with Sophia Hill.
Nana, thank you very much. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. The top stories: Elon Musk has called for a new Reform UK leader. The Tesla and ex-CEO posted this on his social media platform. He said the Reform Party needs a new leader. Farage doesn't have what it takes. Now, this apparent turn comes just a few weeks after Nigel Farage travelled to Florida to meet with Musk about possible funding for his party. This news also comes less than 24 hours after Farage said there was no question on Musk supporting him personally. Well, some breaking news now that Nigel Farage has since responded, saying, well, this is a surprise. Elon is a remarkable individual. Nigel says, but I am afraid on this I disagree. My view remains that Tommy Robinson is not right for reform and I never sell out my principles. Bringing more on that breaking news story as we get it. Elsewhere, heavy snow overnight is causing disruption across most of the country. Manchester, Liverpool and now Leeds Bradford airports have all reopened their runways. Leeds Bradford said some disruption is expected to continue throughout the day due to a backlog of departing flights, but the airport expected the situation to improve. The Met Office had issued 2 amber weather warnings for England and Wales, forecasting 3 to 7 centimetres of snow with rain in lower areas. One warning covering most of northern England, including Leeds, Sheffield and the Lake District, is in place until midnight tonight. Rural communities have been warned they could be cut off due to the weather, with some areas facing up to a foot of snowfall. The UK Health Security Agency has issued cold weather health alerts, which remain in place for all of England ahead of a week of low temperatures. In other news, more NHS patients who need elective care will be able to decide where they're treated under new government plans to cut waiting lists. This falls under the new upgrades coming to the NHS app, which Health Secretary Wes Streeting says will shift the NHS into the digital age. Experts have welcomed the move, but warn that digital innovations must not create new barriers and come at the expense of excluding those without a smartphone. The Health Secretary spoke to GB News about the plans.
Prime Minister and I tomorrow are setting out the actions we are taking to get those waiting times down. And yes, that's about the investment the Chancellor announced in the budget, but it is also about the reform that's needed. We've got to modernise the NHS, giving patients more choice, more power, more control, more ease, more convenience over booking their appointments, choice about where to be treated. We'll do that through the NHS app, frankly, bringing the NHS in line with most other service providers in this country.
GB News can exclusively reveal the Prime Minister ignored a Rotherham whistleblower, Jane Senior's bullying complaint, after she exposed child abuse and corruption while he was leader of the opposition in 2020. GB News national reporter Charlie Peters has the latest.
We've seen correspondence sent by Sir Keir Starmer's office that simply says, unfortunately, we won't be able to facilitate a meeting. Oh, but here is an online form for processing complaints. But fundamentally, I think what we've seen as a political reaction to this story, with both Kemi Badenoch from the Conservatives and Rupert Lowe from Reform and plenty of other commentators as well, they're all saying that, well, Jane Senior did have that national hero status. She was being bullied. Why didn't you take the time to meet with her, especially considering the reputation and fear that people had around the Labour Party and the CSE scandal and all the cover-ups?
Now, a Labour Party spokesperson has responded to the claims, saying all complaints are treated seriously and thoroughly assessed in line with our rules and procedures. Complaints are assessed via a specific process independent of the Leader's office, and this was clearly signposted in response to this correspondence at the time. Earlier, the Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp spoke to GB News and called for a new national inquiry.
Do now need a full public inquiry to look at this comprehensively. That should include looking at all the towns involved. It should include looking at Keir Starmer's record as Director of Public Prosecutions.
And Tomiko Ituko, the world's oldest person, has died at the age of 116 in Japan. According to Guinness World Records, the Japanese woman was the oldest living person following the death of 117-year-old Maria Branyas last year. She was born on the 23rd of May 1908, and city officials say she died on the 29th of December in a care home in central Japan. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. Now it's back to Nana.
Good afternoon. It's just fast approaching 8 minutes after 3 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. Welcome to GB News. Some breaking news. Nigel Farage has responded. This is a surprise, as Elon Musk tweeted that the Reform Party needs a new leader. Now, Farage doesn't have what it takes. Former co-deputy leader of Reform UK, Ben Habib, joins me for his reaction. Then, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is Nigel Farage fit to be the Reform UK leader? There's a poll up right now on X asking you that very question, so cast your vote now. In the Great British Debate, I'm also asking, can Sir Keir Starmer survive the grooming gang scandal? Coming up as well, Worldview will be crossing live to speak to Mystifier Uri Geller for his predictions for the year ahead. All of that is on the way. As ever, send me your thoughts, post your comments at gbnews.com/your say. So, breaking news, Nigel Farage has responded to him seemingly losing the support of Elon Musk. Nigel Farage responded on X saying, well, this is a surprise. Elon is a remarkable individual, but on this, I am afraid I disagree. My view remains that Tommy Robinson is not right for reform, and I never sell out my principles. The Tesla and ex-CEO said that on his social media platform, the Reform Party needs a new leader. Farage doesn't have what it takes. Well, I spoke to Nigel Farage yesterday, and he was very certain of the tech billionaire's support.
Could he possibly be a donor to the party? Yes. Is he supportive of the party? Absolutely. Does he support me personally? No question about that. If he does donate money, he'll have to do it legally through a UK company. But I'll tell you something, whether he donates money to us or not, he makes us, with a young generation of people who view him as a hero figure, he makes us look cool. And I'll tell you what, there isn't much of that around in British politics these days.
I also asked Nigel about Tommy Robinson.
He can do his own thing, we're doing ours. I've made it very, very clear for many, many years I didn't want to have anything to do with him, and that position hasn't changed.
Well, so that was Nigel yesterday. Well, joining me now, Susan Evans, who was in UKIP when Nigel Farage was the leader. Suzanne, welcome to the programme. Thank you very much for joining me. Breaking news, of course. Does it surprise you that Elon Musk would be saying this about Nigel?
Yeah, I mean, it's come as like a bolt out of the blue. Farage is going to be furious, especially as you said, Anna, he just yesterday insisted that Elon Musk had full confidence in him. So this is he's going to be absolutely livid, really. Yesterday, Farage thought his new best friend was the world's richest man and one of the most influential people in the world. And now this complete bombshell, he's had the rug completely pulled from under his feet. There were rumours that Elon Musk was going to donate a massive amount of money to reform. At one stage, the rumours got so ridiculous. There were talk of £100 million being donated. I mean, I don't see how that was ever going to be possible, but that's what the rumours were saying. And now it looks like he's going to get nothing, nada. End of story. So, and it's also, of course, going to be a massive blow for members of Reform who must have been delighted with Elon's support. It's going to be very difficult for those people who've recently defected to Reform, those high-profile people, the Bravermans, Andrea Jenkins, Tim Montgomery, the former editor of Conservative Home, all these kind of people. It's going to be a complete shock to them. Now, it's interesting that you asked Nigel about the Tommy Robinson issue. I was trying to wonder what on earth has suddenly caused Elon Musk to have this dramatic about turn. And I think you're probably right. I think it is the Tommy Robinson issue. And I have to say, I'm 100% with Nigel Farage on this. There seems to be a kind of attempt at the moment to turn Tommy Robinson into a kind of Nelson Mandela figure, a man who's fighting quite legitimately and quite honestly and in a very ethical way against wrongs in our society. And I really don't share that view. Nigel Farage actually left UKIP a couple of days after I did, and I left for exactly the same reason as he did, because the way in which the then leader of UKIP, Gerald Batten, wanted to bring Tommy Robinson into the fold. Now, I know a lot of people have a lot of sympathy for Robinson, but you have to remember that this is a man who has got a string of criminal offences behind him. He's been done in the US for immigration fraud when he travelled on a fake passport. He's been done for assault and occasioning actual bodily harm, various other public order offences. He's been done for mortgage fraud, and he's currently in prison for contempt of court. This is not someone somebody who the British public as a whole are going to warm to. It's not somebody who I think is a fit and proper person to head up a political party in the UK. And so, you know, if that is why Elon Musk is doing this, then I'm afraid he could not have read the vast majority of the British people more wrong.
Do you think, though? Because wasn't Tommy Robinson one of the first people to put pressure on the government to address the issue of grooming gangs?
Yeah, absolutely. And,
so
you know,
isn't that what Elon is talking about? Because
I think it probably is. But,
yeah.
you know, what I've said about Tommy Robinson, I stand by that. Even a broken clock can be right twice a day. And there's no doubt that Tommy Robinson, you know, disseminated that information and brought it to public attention. But as I said,
is that not a bit unfair? Like, you know, all the things that he has done wrong that you pointed out, and the you know, all the things, his convictions and so on and so forth. Yeah, that's fair enough. But with the same, you must also give credit where credit is due, that he did put pressure on, and he repeatedly puts pressure on the government and authorities to look into the grooming gang scandal. And had it not been for him and others maybe like him, we probably wouldn't be even talking about it today. Now, I'm not saying that all the other stuff he's done is right, but Elon was probably supporting that aspect of his behaviour.
I'm sure he probably was, but I don't agree that were it not for Tommy Robinson, it wouldn't have come to light. I mean, there are amazing people like Maggie Oliver, for instance, who was actively involved.
No, I didn't say that. I said if had it not been for Tommy Robinson and others like him in terms of pushing. So he wasn't alone, but he has continued with the pressure. So I'm just saying that credit where credit is due. He has done that, which I agree with him, and I get why Elon would have supported him on that specific and particular issue.
Absolutely, and I'm sure, Nana, you could point me to the most hardened criminal. I'm sure I'd find some point in which I agreed with them. That wasn't my point. My point is, if Elon Musk thinks that Tommy Robinson is a fit and proper person to take over reform, then I think he's wrong, and I think he's completely misjudged the British...
But he didn't say that. No, he didn't say that.
Actually have to vote.
No, but he didn't
I know
say...
he hasn't said that.
No, but he didn't say that... No, but he didn't say that Tommy Robinson should lead reform at all. He supported Tommy Robinson in his push to get attention drawn towards the Rotherham scandals. That's what he was talking about, and he even said that Jess Phillips should be arrested because, of course, she's the safeguarding minister, and she had decided not to have a full-on inquiry and told Oldham Council to do it themselves, pretty much. So I think that's, you know, because we can all take these little things out of context, but I'm just putting it into the context with which his comment was made.
Yeah, absolutely. And Elon Musk is, of course, absolutely entitled to his opinion. But my opinion is that I think he's read the British voter wrong. You know, getting to number 10, which is what Farage wants to do, what Reform wants to do, is not a quick and easy fix. You can't just rely on the support of your hardened core vote. You have to reach out. You have to bring other people into your fold. You have to get other people and persuade them to put that X in your box on the ballot paper. And I don't think that, you know, Nigel himself has found it difficult to reach out to people because of who he is and the reputation that he has and his kind of Marmite reputation. Some people love him, some people hate him. There are very few people who kind of are in the middle, really, and think, oh, he's not a bad bloke, I'll give him a go. You have to bring people with you in politics. And my point is that Tommy Robinson, and if that's why Elon Musk is doing this, and let's be clear, we don't really know this because Elon Musk hasn't as yet expressed his opinion as to why he doesn't think Farage is up to the job. If it is because of the Tommy Robinson case, I think he's badly misjudged the majority of the electorate, which Reform will need to win over if they are going to progress in British politics and ultimately get that top prize of being in Downing Street. All right, well, he's still the bookie's favourite. I wonder if the odds have shifted. Suzanne Evans, thank you very much for your thoughts. Well, of course, on my panel today, we've got Ben Habib, and so I want to get his response because actually, Ben, Tommy Robinson has suggested that you should be the leader for Reform UK. Why are you laughing?
So can I just start where I'd like to start, if I may, rather than going into who should take over as leader of Reform?
Well, no, that's why I brought you in. That's specific questions and no.
Elon Musk is the richest man in the world, runs businesses successfully. He's got attention to detail. He develops his views, possibly very rapidly, but he's capable of attention to detail and forming a view quickly and putting it out there. There has been a rift coming between Nigel Farage and Elon Musk over the last 3 days, and actually I think your interview with Nigel yesterday was the last straw for Elon. So just to explain to people where the rift came, what Elon said was that Tommy Robinson is a political prisoner. And Nigel came on your show and he said, no, he's not. He's in jail for contempt. And actually, technically, and in all material respects, Nigel is wrong. Because Tommy Robinson was... the charge of contempt was brought by the Attorney General, who is a Labour-appointed political figure. So it was a political individual that brought the charge for contempt against Tommy Robinson. And Tommy Robinson was in dispute over a civil matter. It wasn't a criminal matter. And it is highly unusual for the Attorney General to get involved in a civil dispute. And they're only allowed to do it if there's a matter of public interest at stake. And at no level could anyone say that Tommy Robinson's video that he released, which was apparently in contempt of court, at no level could anyone say that it was worthy of incarcerating him because it was contempt of court. And so at one level, yes, Tommy Robinson was in contempt of court and went to jail as a result of it. But fundamentally, it was a political figure that brought the charge against Tommy Robinson for contempt, and his incarceration was way over the top for a civil judgment. And Nigel came on your show, and he said that, I'll explain it to Elon. Well, actually, Elon, I'm sure, would have read how it was that the contempt of court case was brought against Tommy Robinson, and how Tommy Robinson ended up in jail. And I can't agree more with Elon Musk. Tommy Robinson became the political victim of a narrative and an ideology that has taken hold in this country, where you're not allowed to challenge any ethnic minority, given root through diversity, equity and inclusion, the regulatory and legislative framework which you and I have discussed many times on programmes before. Now, you don't have to be a believer in Tommy Robinson. You don't have to be a denouncer of Tommy Robinson, but you've got to stick to the facts. And Nigel got the facts completely wrong when it came to Tommy Robinson's incarceration. And Tommy Robinson Elon Musk responded to her...
But he is effectively in prison for contempt of court.
Yeah, but that doesn't brought by a political figure.
Doesn't mean that... But both two things can be true at the same time. One can be that he is in prison for contempt of court, which is true. The other can be that ultimately he's a political prisoner. Why can those two things not be...
But the key point is that it was a politically motivated court case. That's what Elon was saying. Yeah. And I think just one more thing I'd like to say. Elon Musk is someone who is prepared to test the shifting of the Overton window. And it is vital, by the way, that we test the shifting of the Overton window across Western civilization. The reason I'm in politics is because I think that Western civilization, the United Kingdom, most pertinently in my case, faces an existential threat at multiple levels. And it's because of the way we've been governed for 27 years, and we need a 180-degree change in the way that we're governed. We will not achieve the change in the way that this country is governed unless we're prepared to test the Overton window. And Nigel, I'm afraid, has been extremely timid over the last few months in the way that he's gone about progressing reforms progress.
Do you think, look, they've got 170,000 members. In fact, that ticker got to that number whilst he was there, and I think he's handled the Kemi Badenoch situation very well.
170,000 subscribers. Yes, let's just be accurate, because one of the things I've been pushing for, and I think it put me at odds with Nigel considerably, was the democratisation of the party. And notwithstanding all the representations made by Nigel, Zaya and others in the leadership, they have not democratised it. There are only 3 members in Reform UK, and Nigel controls the party.
Yeah, but that will take time.
No, it won't take time. It's something you can do overnight.
OK, but then they would need to take time on how that is done, and you wouldn't make a decision like that, as in the way it's done, immediately. You will spend time having conversations, negotiations and working...
Nana, there was a constitution approved on the 20th of September at the Reform UK conference, and no application yet has been made to the Electoral Commission for the registration of that constitution.
I think that's coming, Ben Habib. I want to bring in Aaron Bastani briefly. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, as somebody who's not on the right of politics, I find it utterly extraordinary. I mean, I have to say, Nigel Farage is probably a generational political figure on the right in this country outside the Conservatives. He's achieved sensational results. He's led a political party, I think, twice to finishing first in a national election while not being a leader of either Labour or the Conservatives or the Liberals. That has literally never happened in our democratic history before. I'm singing his praises here, maybe you're surprised, but I'm trying to relay the facts to the audience.
And by the way, I endorse all of that. I agree with all of that.
Yeah. You've got Reform repeatedly polling on 20% plus. And I think the big explanation here for me between Musk's opprobrium and Farage's approach is that Musk is familiar with an American primary presidential system, in which case you can play these games. In our system, you need to build a national organisation. You need to get a majority in Westminster. It's very, very, very hard with the parliamentary system. And you do have to, a little bit, I don't really agree with the whole centrist analysis of politics, but you do have to at least consider that median voter in 30 or 40 seats in a way that isn't so much the case in the United States. It isn't a really tight election, which the last one wasn't, but it's a quite different system. And I think Musk really is familiar with the primary system, the presidential system. He's looking at Britain, he's saying, well, why can't we have a big figure like Trump? The reality is it doesn't work like that. We have a very different system. I'll say this as a final point. This may be positive for Reform because it keeps Nigel Farage in the spotlight for several more days. My goodness. We're taking it for granted now. He's getting more coverage than the Prime Minister, right?
Well, where is the Prime Minister?
And I'd say,
is he in this country somewhere? Or
well, he's normally on holiday, isn't he?
I think he's on holiday somewhere. Who knows? Let us know. GBNews.com/say. Somebody will know where he is.
So he's getting all of this coverage, and I'd also say, and we'll see where this works out in the polling, he looks to a certain subsection of the electorate as a moderate. He's both radical but moderate. I'm not Tommy Robinson, but I'm also against the establishment. That can be a very, very positive place to be.
Well, Aaron Bastani, thank you very much, Ben Habib. Right, you're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. We'll continue with the discussion after all of this. Stay tuned.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Christmas canapé offers partygoers a small treat that staves off hunger and soaks up the fizz. Founder and host of Crazy Sexy Food, Hannah Hardy-Young, joins me now with a toothsome selection. Lovely to see you, Hannah.
You too.
Origin of the word canapé?
Yes, French. Sort of from the, yeah, of course, from sort of the 1800s. It means sofa. So it's sort of playing on the analogy of someone sitting or lying on a sofa. It is about the garnish, traditionally sitting on a piece of stale bread or pastry. Obviously, it's evolved over the years. I don't have any stale bread for you, don't worry. But the idea is that it's something sort of garnish, something exciting sitting on a vehicle that you can put in your mouth in 1 or 2 bites.
It's obviously post-war. What is it? Is it 60s or 70s? How long have we been eating these things?
I would say around about then. And I think what's interesting, I mean, I always look towards even the 80s, a little bit sort of later on, where it's, where you sort of have that, sort of the classic vol au vent, which was, you know, a little bit dry, a little bit tasteless. And I think that's why I've brought a real selection for you to show you how far we've come. Another traditional one, obviously, being your pigs in blankets. I'm going to hold off for a second before I choke. Another thing that I have to say about canapés, there are a few little tips that I must give people super quickly. Make sure they're small. 1 or 2 bites. When you're at a party, you're standing, you've got a glass in one hand, then you need to hold it. There. OK, I would have preferred a glass of wine, but, you know, I can't stand these canapés where I have to put the glass down in order to eat the food. I want to do it all at once.
I couldn't agree more. You should never eat more than you can lift.
Exactly.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon, 27 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. We'll return to the breaking news that Elon Musk has seemingly dropped support for Nigel Farage as Reform UK's leader. Well, joining me now, political commentator Benedict Spence. Benedict, welcome to the programme. It seems that... Do you think that Elon is serious, or do you maybe feel they are playing some sort of political PR-type game here?
Well, even if he is serious, actually, Elon Musk is somebody who can pivot very quickly, not unlike Donald Trump, actually, in terms of who they back, who they disagree with, who they fall out with. Because, you know, in order to be the sort of individuals that Elon Musk or Donald Trump is, you have to be able to bury the hatchet, you have to be strategic, and you have to be prepared to make uncomfortable decisions. So, you know, we've seen that throughout the Trump presidency, bringing people back into the fold or cutting them loose when it's politically expedient. And I think if Musk has any sense, he will be open to doing that as well. The reality of the situation is, in terms of the broad power game that's at play here, there's no question Elon Musk is probably maybe the 5th most powerful person in the world, and Donald Trump and Nigel Farage is the leader of the 3rd political party in the UK. There's only going to be one winner there long term. But in the short term, if what Elon Musk wants is to sort of pursue a civilizational goal, which seems to be what he wants, you know, he's looking at this slightly beyond simply what's politically expedient or business expedient in the short term. He has to recognize that reform is probably the best bet. You know, and that's as much as anything else, because Elon Musk himself is actually very unpopular. I thought it was interesting listening to what Aaron Bastani said there earlier, which is that, you know, this makes Farage look like a bit of a moderate because Tommy Robinson is politically unpalatable. But amongst the middle classes in the UK, Elon Musk is also rather unpalatable as well. And that's for very different reasons. They don't like the brashness. They don't like the success, frankly. They don't like that he has opinions. So you can understand why he doesn't go down particularly well, despite his success in life. But it allows Nigel Farage to actually look slightly more, if you like, slightly more respectable in the face of this sort of onslaught online. For Farage to sort of knock back and go, well, this is something we disagree on, but I respect you and X, Y, Z. It allows him to look, if you like, a bit more like somebody who's got leadership qualities rather than
Elon, just to keep you up to date now, Elon has just tweeted, "Free Tommy Robinson now." See, this is why I think this is, for me, it feels like a bit of a game now.
The thing with all of this is he can keep doing this as long as he wants. That's not going to persuade people that Tommy Robinson is in any way politically palatable or anything other than what he is in the UK. The average UK audience is probably going to be more resolved not to like Tommy Robinson as a result of this. But as I say, long term, Elon Musk is the person that's just realistically helped get the president of the United States elected. And it's not going to stop there. He's probably going to help get the next president elected as well. And he's going to have greater influence over European politics. So it's, I think, a really difficult situation for Farage to navigate. He has to be firm on this Tommy Robinson thing because it's political suicide to be seen alongside him. I know that there are people who like what he has to say and have a lot of sympathy for him. That's fine. But they are a very loud, very small minority. That is not the future for reform. But as I say, the trend is going in one direction. And Nigel Farage and Reform, they're at a very delicate moment in their sort of infancy of this political party. They've risen relatively quickly out of nowhere. They're polling very well. But I think that they risk being buffeted by external forces, the same sort of forces, actually, that both the Conservatives and Labour have found. You know, in British politics, we are, I think, very vulnerable to external forces. And if you decide to hitch your wagon to the MAGA movement and to the Silicon Valley tech bros, you have to be prepared for the fact that these people are a lot wealthier and a lot more powerful than you. And in the short term, you might be able to sort of, guard yourself against that by setting yourself up as being slightly separate. That might even give you a polling boost. Long term, there's only going to be one winner there. Nigel Farage is not going to be the great ideological victor against, I wouldn't even say Elon Musk, I'd say the direction of travel that the MAGA movement is currently going in and that Silicon Valley would like it to go in. And again, it's not just Musk that we're talking about, it's Jeff Bezos, it's Mark Zuckerberg. These individuals are going on a particular political journey rightwards. That is the future trajectory. It's probably come too soon for the rehabilitation of Tommy Robinson. But long term, I think that is the trend for the right in the West.
All right, Benedict Spence, thank you very much.
Thank you.
32 minutes after 3 o'clock. If you've just tuned in, welcome on board. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Next, Aaron Bastani and Ben Habib join me to discuss whether Nigel Farage is fit to be Reform UK's leader. But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Nana, thank you very much. Well, first to that breaking news that Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has responded after Elon Musk said he doesn't have what it takes to lead the party. The Tesla and ex-CEO posted on X that the Reform Party needs a new leader. This apparent turn comes just a few weeks after Nigel Farage travelled to Florida to meet with Musk about possible funding for his party. This news also comes less than 24 hours after Farage said there was no question on Musk supporting him personally. Well, Nigel, as I mentioned, has responded, saying, well, this is a surprise. Elon is a remarkable individual, but I'm afraid on this I disagree. He goes on to say, my view remains that Tommy Robinson is not right for reform, and I never sell out my principles. And in the last few minutes, Tommy Robinson has backed Ben Habib to be leader of the Reform UK party. Elsewhere, heavy snow is causing some travel disruption in the UK as weather warnings remain in place. Manchester, Liverpool and Leeds Bradford airports have all now opened their runways, though. Leeds Bradford says some disruption is expected to continue throughout the day due to a backlog of departing flights, but the airport expected the situation to improve. The Met Office had issued 2 amber weather warnings for England and Wales, forecasting 3 to 7 centimetres of snow in some areas. One warning covering most of northern England, including Leeds, Sheffield and the Lake District, is in place until midnight tonight. Rural communities have been warned they could be cut off due to the weather, with some areas facing up to a foot of snowfall. The UK Health Security Agency has issued cold weather health alerts, which remain in place for all of England ahead of a week of low temperatures. And finally, GB News can exclusively reveal that the Prime Minister ignored a Rotherham whistleblower, Jane Senior's bullying complaint, after she exposed a child abuse and corruption while he was leader of the opposition in 2020. GB News' national reporter Charlie Peters has the latest.
We've seen correspondence sent by Sir Keir Starmer's office that simply says, unfortunately, we won't be able to facilitate a meeting. Oh, but here is an online form for processing complaints. But fundamentally, I think what we've seen as a political reaction to this story, with both Kemi Badenoch from the Conservatives and Rupert Lowe from Reform and plenty of other commentators as well, they're all saying that, well, Jane Senior did have that national hero status. She was being bullied. Why didn't you take the time to meet with her, especially considering the reputation and fear that people had around the Labour Party and the CSE scandal and all the cover-ups?
And those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. It remains on the cold side, looking ahead into next week. Further risk of rain, which should be heavy at times, but then turning drier, but perhaps some weather systems moving into the south. At the moment, though, low pressure dominating the weather pattern, bumping into that cold air. We've seen heavy snow push its way northwards, milder air pushing in, though, across southern counties, turning this to rain quite widely. Through this evening, further snow is expected across the higher ground, particularly northern England into southern Scotland. Further disruption possible as we head into Monday morning. Localised flooding as rain pushes eastwards across the rest of England and Wales. Overnight, icy stretches developing across Northern Ireland, Scotland. Further wintry showers here. So an unsettled start to Monday morning. Frequent snow showers pushing in across northern Scotland, some icy stretches, so do take care if you are travelling. Some clearer skies across the central belt, but then across the borders region, some heavy snow. There could be some tricky travelling conditions, as well as parts of Northern Ireland, Northern England, seeing further snow in places too. Wintry showers for Wales. Elsewhere, generally cloudy, rain across some eastern counties pulling away through the morning. So Met-Office warnings remain in force for Monday morning for snow and ice across northern parts of the UK. Through the day, colder air seeps its way back southwards to all areas, so a mixture of some bright spells, but largely cloudy and frequent wintry showers pushing in from the north, though mostly falling as rain across southeastern parts, but a cold feeling day for everyone. Only a few degrees above freezing across the north, further south highs around 6 or 7. So much colder tomorrow compared to today. To end Monday, further wintry showers as this low pressure system pulls away, some brisk winds for a time along some eastern coasts, and temperatures widely falling below freezing and staying on the cold side over the next few days as well. Temperatures really struggling, particularly by midweek.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. Welcome. 38 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. Now let's return to the breaking news this hour. And then, of course, we'll be discussing for the Great British Debate, is Nigel Farage fit to be the Reform UK leader? Elon Musk has said this on social media on X. The Reform Party needs a new leader. Farage doesn't have what it takes. Nigel Farage responded saying, well, this is a surprise. Elon is a remarkable individual, but on this, I'm afraid I disagree. My view remains that Tommy Robinson is not right for reform, and I never sell out my principles. Well, I spoke to Nigel Farage yesterday, and he was certain of the tech billionaire's support. Oh, how things change so quickly. Have a listen.
Could he possibly be a donor to the party? Yes. Is he supportive of the party? Absolutely. Does he support me personally? No question about that. If he does donate money, he'll have to do it legally through a UK company. But I'll tell you something. Whether he donates money to us or not, he makes us, with a young generation of people who view him as a hero figure, he makes us look cool. And I'll tell you what, there isn't much of that around in British politics these days.
So that was me speaking to Nigel Farage yesterday. And now Tommy Robinson has joined Elon Musk, calling for a new leader of Reform UK. He wants Ben Habib. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is Nigel Farage fit to be the Reform UK leader? Well, joining me, of course, is co-founder of Novara Media, Aaron Bastani, and also co-deputy leader of Reform UK, Ben Habib. Right, well, I think I must start with you, Ben Habib.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Is Nigel fit to be the Reform UK leader, in your view?
So, again, as I did in the last segment, I just want to reverse a bit. No one has suggested, not Elon Musk, not me, no one else, as far as I'm aware, has been suggesting that Nigel Farage should take Tommy Robinson into Reform. What people want is for Nigel Farage, I think what a number of people want, is for Nigel Farage to cease throwing Tommy Robinson under a bus. Tommy Robinson, and particularly what they want, is for Reform to stop describing supporters of Tommy Robinson as that lot and disavowing them in the process. There are hundreds of thousands, if not over 1 million or more, Tommy Robinson supporters who were directed by Tommy Robinson in the last election to vote for Reform. What Nigel needed to do, and which I've done, by the way, is neither endorse nor throw Tommy Robinson under a bus, But Nigel seems absolutely desirous to make it all about Tommy Robinson and then throw him under a bus. That's not what Elon was saying. Elon was saying, let's just remind viewers what Elon was saying, was that Tommy Robinson is a political prisoner, and for the technical reasons I pointed out in the last segment, in my view, he is, and that he should be released. And in my view, being put in jail as a result of a civil action is an extraordinary result.
Okay.
Civil actions are settled through monetary payments. They're not settled through incarcerations.
What Nigel is saying is that he has been consistent with his view with regarding Tommy Robinson as somebody who would form or be part of a party that he's in. So unlike Keir Starmer or unlike a lot of the other politicians, Nigel is holding firm with his belief that Tommy Robinson shouldn't really be a part of Reform UK, because Tommy Robinson, whether you like him or hate him, does have a pretty bad...
No one's asking for Tommy Robinson to be part of Reform.
Yeah.
Nigel needs to get that through his head. That no one's asking for it. What people are asking for is for the supporters, the people who went to the Unite the Kingdom march in July and September, are not denounced and disavowed by Reform.
Well, it was me, actually, who asked, why won't you let Tommy Robinson join your party?
Oh, OK.
I asked.
Well, that was your question.
Yesterday.
Yeah. Well, and I think Nigel's response was that he's got a criminal record, effectively. That's the... But, you know, one of the MPs of Reform has a criminal record.
I think it was more...
Would he remove the whip?
I don't think it's really to do with the criminal record. I think it's more to do with what Tommy Robinson brings. And I don't know whether that would be a positive thing for Reform UK.
Well, I mean,
look... If you run a political party, you do have to be ruthless. Because you need, as Aaron...
Nana, it's perfectly legitimate and appropriate that Nigel doesn't want Tommy Robinson in Reform. That's fine. But denouncing people who support Tommy Robinson, perpetually denouncing people like that, is just... It's not politically sensible.
Has he perpetually denounced people who support...
Well, Richard Tice's... Well, the party, Richard Tice has repeatedly said, we've had nothing to do with that lot being the people who went to the Unite the Kingdom marches, which were organised by Tommy Robinson.
I think he was probably referring to the more direct supporters of Tommy Robinson, but because Tommy Robinson, I mean, some of the things he says I agree with, some of the things he says I don't agree with. Just like anybody else, he has a right to say what he feels. But, again, he does bring a sort of energy to the party that a lot of people may not appreciate.
But it's not about whether he's a bad man or a good man or whether you want him in or out. It's the perpetual sort of vilification of Tommy Robinson and his supporters that gets people's goat.
OK, well, Aaron Bastani.
I mean, I didn't really see that. I just saw Nigel Farage creating a cordon sanitaire around Reform, what kind of person is allowed to be a member or not. And clearly, Tommy Robinson has a huge profile. Allowing him into the party would mean that you have a very visible political figure who has influence. He's been in prison 4 times between 2005 and 2019. He entered the United States on a friend's passport. He's committed mortgage fraud.
Hold on 1 second. I am not making the case for Tommy Robinson.
I know you're not, Ben. No, because
no one's making the case for Tommy Robinson.
Well, Elon Musk is saying free Tommy Robinson. But I mean,
but that's different to saying he should be part of Reform.
No, but hold on. Well, then you agree with Farage. There should be a cordon sanitaire.
No, it's up to Farage to decide who he has as subscribers to his party. It's up to him to decide who are subscribers. But what is unhelpful, I think, for millions of people who support Reform is for perpetually throwing those people who see some of the good that's been done by Tommy under a bus.
OK, so what specifically did Nigel Farage, say in the last 48 hours that you disagree with?
Well, he said that Tommy Robinson is not a political prisoner. He went to jail for contempt, and I will explain that to Elon Musk when I see him. And the point is that Tommy Robinson couldn't have gone to jail for contempt of court.
Guilty.
He couldn't have
You're
gone...
arguing over semantics.
I'm not arguing about it. He couldn't have gone to jail for contempt of court if it hadn't been the political appointed representative, the Attorney General, deciding that he was going to intercede in a civil case, highly extraordinary.
I agree. I know that, but he pled guilty. If he had pled not guilty, then I think your argument would be very robust, but he pled guilty.
Yeah, but the thing was politicised, and then he was locked up for, I think, 1.5 years or whatever. He's going to serve a minimum of 9 months. You do not incarcerate people, generally, as a result of a civil action. It's an extraordinary result.
Absolutely true, but he pled guilty. He pled guilty. So what can Farage do?
So let me give you another example of someone who pled guilty. Peter Lynch, A man, a 61-year-old man, entirely peaceful, went to the protest after the Southport killings, and he said a few things to the policeman. He committed no violent actions. He was charged with rioting, and I don't know what sort of legal advice he had, but all the evidence against him was merely one of stuff he put on placards and what he said to the police. He pled guilty for reasons which I cannot understand. He was put in jail for 2 years and 8 months. Within 2 months, he hanged himself.
Well, I can tell you why he pled guilty.
Yeah, why?
In my opinion. Well, I presume he had a very bad duty solicitor giving him bad advice. Tommy Robinson gets good advice from a decent solicitor.
But there are both examples of the politicisation of our criminal justice system.
Okay, but
there's been a lot of that recently.
Yeah, and that's all very well. But again, very briefly, Ben Habib. So what do you think then? Is Nigel Farage fit to be the leader for Reform UK?
Well, I mean, Aaron...
Quickly, because I've got to go for a break, so I'll just get you to...
Well, I think they need to democratise Reform UK.
Is it a yes or no?
I think in the absence of a democratisation of the party, if Nigel insists on... You talk about presidential-style politics.
I've got to go for the break.
He needs a broad, deep team with checks and balances. Unless he does that, he's not right to be the leader.
Briefly, yes or no?
Well, I think the members should choose, and the point Ben's making is members don't choose.
But what's your view?
He's a very talented politician, but ultimately, we're in a democratic society. Members should choose the leaders of political parties.
But do you think he's fit to lead Reform UK?
I don't think he's unfit. I mean, I'm not going to vote for Reform in the next election.
That is a yes. No, he's not unfit. He's fit to run the party. But what do you think? GBNews.com/your say. I'll continue all of that. We'll carry on talking about the fallout of Elon Musk seemingly denouncing support for Nigel Farage. Is this the end of Reform UK?
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
My next guest knew George Carman rather intimately. Indeed, he immediately asked her for her hand in marriage when they first met. Karen Phillips knew Carman from 1986 and was a close friend until his death in 2001. Karen has used court transcripts and personal documents to construct her new book, Get Carman. There it is. And here you are. Karen, thank you very much indeed. So you knew him very well, and actually he began to write a little bit of an autobiography just in the weeks before his death. And from those pages, I was struck by the amount of uncertainty that there was about the man. This man who was so confident in court, who charmed juries so famously, but in some ways felt that he was an actor, in some ways felt that he was fighting back nerves and uncertainties. Is that true?
I think he was quite worried about every case. It was much more that he was concerned for the client. He always wanted to do his best. He worked so hard to win a case, not really for his personal satisfaction, but because he didn't want to let people down.
His success rate was extraordinary, and, you know, I'll choose my words carefully here, but shall we say that many people were surprised at the time that Jeremy Thorpe was found not guilty. It was astonishing in the case of Jonathan Aitken, for example, that the principal charge against him, which was that he'd been corrupt in arms dealings, I don't think that was ever actually reached during the court. It seems even more surprising today that people who were employed by Mohammed Fayed were believed in the case of Neil Hamilton. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, his results are extraordinary.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, busy show. 51 minutes after 3 o'clock. Welcome if you've just tuned in. Where have you been? There's been some breaking news. I'm Nana Akua. Joining me, co-founder of Novara Media, Aaron Bastani, and also a former co-deputy leader of Reform UK, Ben Habib. Let's continue with our discussion as Elon Musk seemingly dropped support for Nigel Farage, whilst Tommy Robinson is backing you, Ben Habib, for Reform UK leader. Yes, Tommy Robinson is saying that you should be the leader.
Yeah, and
would you consider it if somebody asked you? Would you consider being them?
Yeah, I would consider it, frankly. I mean, you've asked me a straight question. I'll give you a straight answer. Absolutely. And I would be steadfast in standing by people who campaign for reform and vote for reform. Every British citizen's vote counts equally, and I would be looking for every British citizen's vote. And one of the things I wouldn't be doing, and we haven't talked about it, but one thing that has been going on is a number of grassroots supporters of reform who put it on the map have been set aside and, Tories taken over in preference. And, in this pivot to the centre ground, as Aaron was talking about, in the pursuit of perhaps sanitising reform, I think to a significant extent, Nigel is turning his back on the people who created reform in the first place. And I think you need to do both. You need to take new voters in, obviously, to win the next election, but you've got to stand by the ideology in which you believe. You cannot trounce your ideology in the pursuit of power. If you do that, there is no point getting power.
Well, do you think they've done that? I don't see that they've done that. They are holding with their policies on immigration. They're holding with their policies supporting the farmers.
Nigel has said Nigel is on the left of Kemi in certain respects. Kemi has said Kemi Badenoch has said she's concerned about the rate of demographic change in this country, and Nigel has said he is not concerned about the demographic rate of change. Robert Jenrick has said that he favours mass deportations of all people who've entered this country illegally, and Nigel Farage has said he's not in favour of mass deportations.
Mass deportation, Donald Trump also said, and I don't know how realistic it is. Aaron Bastani, you've got about 30 seconds to give your opinion.
I feel like Nigel Farage has made a dangerous enemy in Ben Habib.
I'm not an enemy of Nigel Farage's. No. Don't put words in my mouth.
No, but it's because it's interesting for me that there's lots of smart people on the right of politics, very few of which are in the Conservative Party. Ben is one of them, Nigel Farage is another. And I find this infighting interesting. I thought it was an advantage that the radical right had that the radical left didn't. The radical left is very prone to infighting and conflict, and maybe
we see it the other way around.
Well, whatever you do, don't go the way of the Tory party. Stay with us. But what do you think? Should Nigel step down as Reform UK leader? Let's get an update with your weather.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. It remains on the cold side, looking ahead into next week. Further risk of rain, which should be heavy at times, but then turning drier, but perhaps some weather systems moving into the south. At the moment, though, low pressure dominating the weather pattern, bumping into that cold air. We've seen heavy snow push its way northwards, milder air pushing in, though, across southern counties, turning this to rain quite widely. Through this evening, further snow is expected across the higher ground, particularly northern England into southern Scotland. Further disruption possible as we head into Monday morning. Localised flooding as rain pushes eastwards across the rest of England and Wales. Overnight, icy stretches developing across Northern Ireland, Scotland. Further wintry showers here. So an unsettled start to Monday morning. Frequent snow showers pushing in across northern Scotland. Some icy stretches, so do take care if you are travelling. Some clearer skies across the central belt, but then across the borders region, some heavy snow. There could be some tricky travelling conditions, as well as parts of Northern Ireland, Northern England, seeing further snow in places too. Wintry showers for Wales. Elsewhere, generally cloudy, rain across some eastern counties pulling away through the morning. So Met Office warnings remain in force for Monday morning for snow and ice across northern parts of the UK. Through the day, colder air seeps its way back southwards to all areas, so a mixture of some bright spells, but largely cloudy and frequent wintry showers pushing in from the north, though mostly falling as rain across southeastern parts, but a cold-feeling day for everyone. Only a few degrees above freezing across the north. Further south, highs around 6 or 7, so much colder tomorrow compared to today. To end Monday, further wintry showers as this low-pressure system pulls away. Some brisk winds for a time along some eastern coasts, and temperatures widely falling below freezing and staying on the cold side over the next few days as well. Temperatures really struggling, particularly by midweek.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine how £50,000 in cash from us could make your new year go with a bang. From treats to holidays to fun times with the family, a totally tax-free £50,000 in cash could make you feel alive in 2025. And just one entry into the Great British Giveaway really could make £50,000 cash all yours. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Patrick Christie's. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Apparently, in the Mail, page 5, hard-pressed bosses already having to deal with deadlines, red tape and staff who won't actually come into the office over Christmas. And they're saying that Christmas parties this year are going to be as lame as ever because everyone's afraid of basically getting cancelled or misbehaving or getting sacked for their behaviour. Would you risk it, Trey, at Christmas?
Do you know, I've actually never had a normal job in my life, so I wouldn't last a second because I'm not very politically correct. But it must be horrendous, really, because rather than enjoying yourself, you're having to completely always censor yourself. And it might be the most innocent of stuff that's said to someone that they then take offence to, which means you're going to probably just keep your mouth shut, which doesn't sound like the best of parties, does it, really?
No.
Tricky one, isn't it? Because you're not at work, so it's not an office issue if, you know, some banter and it's taken the wrong way. But still, it's still a work environment, isn't it?
Yeah. If HR shows up, it's a work party. It's a work event.
HR shows up, I'm gone.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. And so even for us this year, first of all, it's the first year we're calling it a holiday party. I don't know how I felt about that.
Really? What, your company's doing that?
Yeah, they're calling it a holiday party.
Oh, no, well, no.
Yeah, I know. I voted against.
So they got rid of the word
Christmas.
Why?
Because we want to be inclusive.
How's it not inclusive to call it Christmas?
I know. Trust me.
Are you still going to go? I wouldn't bother going. I'd say no.
I am going to go, but I'm going to go dressed as Mrs. Claus, and it's going to be Christmassy, and I'm going to make sure that Christmas enters the door with me.
Yeah, you spread that Christian vibe.
100%. But outside of that, there is that element of HR showing up, and HR will be sober, and they've already prepped them to say, like, listen, this isn't your party. HR can have their party. This is your hangout.
Yeah.
Make sure everyone's being PC.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. It's 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course, it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me for the next few hours, co-founder of Novara Media, Aaron Bastani, and former co-deputy leader of Reform UK, Ben Habib. Breaking news, Nigel Farage has responded. This is a surprise as Elon Musk tweeted the Reform Party needs a new leader. Farage doesn't have what it takes. Nigel was confident about the tech billionaire's support yesterday when I spoke to him.
Could he possibly be a donor to the party? Yes. Is he supportive of the party? Absolutely. Does he support me personally? No question about that. If he does donate money, he'll have to do it legally through a UK company. But I'll tell you something. Whether he donates money to us or not, he makes us, with a young generation of people who view him as a hero figure, he makes us look cool. And tell you what, there isn't much of that around in British politics these days.
So for my Great British Debate, I've been asking, is Nigel Farage fit to be the Reform UK leader? And I've got a poll up on X asking you that very question. Cast your vote now. And stay tuned, because coming up, I'll be speaking to Elon Musk's dad, Errol, for his reaction to his son's seemingly denouncement for his support for Nigel Farage. But before we get started, let's get your latest news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Nana, thank you very much and good afternoon. The top stories. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has responded after Elon Musk said he doesn't have what it takes to lead the party. The Tesla and ex-CEO posted on X that the Reform top party needs a new leader. This apparent turn comes just a few weeks after Nigel Farage travelled to Florida to meet with Musk about possible funding for his party. This news also comes less than 24 hours after Farage said there was no question on Musk supporting him personally. Well, Nigel has responded saying, well, this is a surprise. Elon is a remarkable individual, but I'm afraid on this I disagree. He goes on to say, my view remains that Tommy Robinson is not right for reform and I never sell out my principles. Elsewhere, heavy snow is causing some travel disruption in the UK as weather warnings remain in place. Manchester, Liverpool and Leeds Bradford airports have all now reopened their runways, though. Leeds Bradford says some disruption is expected to continue throughout the day due to a backlog of departing flights, but the airport expected the situation to improve. The Met Office had issued 2 amber weather warnings for England and Wales, forecasting 3 to 7 centimetres of snow. One warning covering most of northern England, including Leeds, Sheffield and the Lake District, is in place until midnight tonight. Rural communities have been warned they could be cut off due to the weather, with some areas facing up to a foot of snowfall. The UK Health Security Agency has issued cold weather health alerts, which remain in place for all of England ahead of a week of low temperatures. In other news, more NHS patients who need elective care will be able to decide where they're treated under new government plans to cut waiting lists. This falls under new upgrades coming to the NHS app, which Health Secretary Wes Streeting says will shift the NHS into a digital age. Experts have welcomed the move but warn that digital innovations must not create new barriers, they say, and come at the expense of excluding those without a smartphone. The Health Secretary spoke to GB News about the new plans.
Prime Minister and I tomorrow are setting out the actions we are taking to get those waiting times down. And yes, that's about the investment the Chancellor announced in the budget, but it is also about the reform that's needed. We've got to modernise the NHS, giving patients more choice, more power, more control, more ease, more convenience over booking their appointments, choice about where to be treated. We'll do that through the NHS app, frankly, bringing the NHS in line with most other service providers in this country.
GB News can exclusively reveal the Prime Minister ignored a Rotherham whistleblower, Jane Senior's bullying complaint after she exposed child abuse and corruption while he was leader of the opposition in 2020. GB News national reporter Charlie Peters has the latest.
We've seen correspondence sent by Sir Keir Starmer's office that simply says, unfortunately, we won't be able to facilitate a meeting. Oh, but here is an online form for processing complaints. But fundamentally, I think what we've seen as a political reaction to this story, with both Kemi Badenoch from the Conservatives and Rupert Lowe from Reform and plenty of other commentators as well, they're all saying that, well, Jane Senior did have that national hero status. She was being bullied. Why didn't you take the time to meet with her, especially considering the reputation and fear that people had around the Labour Party and the CSE scandal and all the cover-ups?
A Labour Party spokesperson has responded to the claims, saying all complaints are treated seriously and thoroughly, assessed in line with our rules and procedures. Complaints are assessed via a specific process independent of the leader's office, and this was clearly signposted in response to this correspondence at the time. Earlier, the Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp spoke to GB News and called for a new national inquiry.
Do now need a full public inquiry to look at this comprehensively. That should include looking at all the towns involved. It should include looking at Keir Starmer's record as Director of Public Prosecutions.
And Tomiko Ituka, the world's oldest person, has died at the age of 116 in Japan. According to Guinness World Records, the Japanese woman was the oldest living person following the death of 117-year-old Maria Branyas last year. She was born on the 23rd of May 1908, and city officials say she died on the 29th of December in a care home in central Japan. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More from me in half an hour.
Thank you, Tatiana. It's just coming up to 7 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. Let's return to the breaking news. Elon Musk said this on his social media platform X. The Reform Party needs a new leader. Farage doesn't have what it takes. And Nigel Farage responded saying, well, this is a surprise. Elon is a remarkable individual. But on this, I'm afraid I disagree. My view remains that Tommy Robinson is not right for reform, and I never sell out my principles. Well, I spoke to Nigel Farage yesterday, and he was certain of the tech billionaire's support. Oh, how things have changed.
Could he possibly be a donor to the party? Yes. Is he supportive of the party? Absolutely. Does he support me personally? No question about that. If he does donate money, he'll have to do it legally through a UK company. But I'll tell you something. Whether he donates money to us or not, he makes us, with a young generation of people who view him as a hero figure, he makes us look cool. And I'll tell you what, there isn't much of that around in British politics these days.
But the saga continues because Elon Musk now appears to support Reform MP Rupert Lowe, remarking that it makes a lot of sense for him to become the party leader. Well, I'm joined now by Labour Minister Ivor Kaplan. Ivor, welcome to the programme. Really good to have you on board. Ivor, I presume that you've been watching and listening to the saga as it unfolds. I mean, you may think it's ridiculous, but Elon Musk does happen to be the richest man in the world. So where do you stand with all of this?
I think the richest man in the world who wants to also be part of the President of the United States in a couple of weeks' time needs to understand and behave properly in respect of other nations. And we are another nation. We are not here to be dealt with by Musk or anyone else. The United Kingdom is the United Kingdom, and we shouldn't at any time be concerned about that type of behaviour that we've seen from this man, who is not eligible in any way to be part of the United Kingdom.
Well, I mean, you say that, but I mean, I suppose if he got here by a small boat, he would be. You say that.
He wouldn't be, actually. He'd have to do a lot more than that, I can tell you.
He probably would. I think anyone would be. But listen, he has every right, just like anyone else, to make his comments or thoughts on X or on any platform as to what he sees or who he thinks should be leading this country. And he doesn't think that Nigel Farage, just from his words, is fit to be the Reform UK leader. I guess, where do you stand on that? Do you think Nigel is fit to be leader?
I'm not going to be commenting on Nigel Farage and the four others. Let's put it like that. Let's just leave them to get on with their business, which is what they want to do. The one thing I would say is that, of course, what I am really, really against of what Musk has said, around obviously one of our very long-standing members and also the Prime Minister himself. Those type of comments are not acceptable, and they've not been acceptable by what he said. And clearly, that is something that I think the United States will have to take up as a matter for them once there is a new president in a couple of weeks' time.
Which comments specifically? What is comments on Tommy Robinson? Which ones specifically?
Well, the Tommy Robinson is even Nigel Farage that thinks it was a ridiculous idea. But the comments that I'm particularly concerned about are the comments relating to what a senior figure in the Labour Party has done as part of her role being a minister, and of course the abuse that he has tried to bring on Keir Starmer, which is completely and utterly unfound. This shouldn't be happening from the United Kingdom.
So you're talking about the comments about Jess Phillips, that she should be in prison, really? Yeah.
No, of course she shouldn't be. She's done more over the years in terms of safeguarding than probably anyone else in the United Kingdom. And
you say that, but why would she not? Well, why would she then not look to do even more and make sure that, you know, in terms of an inquiry for the Oldham scandal, which in fact I think it was in 2022 or 2019 there was actually some sort of inquiry. And it said that Oldham Council were not fit to, the councils were not fit to run the council. But she's turning it back to the council and suggesting that they should have an inquiry of their own. I mean,
that's true. That's true, Nana, about that. But also in 2022...
So as safeguarding minister, you would think that she would want a national or big inquiry into all of this.
But just to say, in 2022, there was a full-on national document published. The Tory government had 20 proposals to it in that document, and none were taken forward by anyone in the Conservative Party. So that's a matter.
They're terrible as well. No, they're terrible as well. Nobody's saying that they did a good thing, you know. But it's all intertwined, isn't it? And now Jess Phillips is in charge. Now she's in charge and they're calling for an inquiry. Even Oldham Council themselves are calling for an external inquiry. And Jess Phillips says, no, do it yourself, sort of thing. I just don't understand that. And I actually think that if your actions result in consequences for other people, which if it's hurty words on Twitter, they'll be the first to tell you that will jail you, then I think if your actions, you know, result in damage and pain to others, then maybe people should consider you being imprisoned. I mean, that's just what he was saying, really, I suspect.
I think it was more than that. He was trying to make case for himself, I think, rather than just talking about those issues from within the United Kingdom. And he can't do that, and that's not acceptable. It would be even more unacceptable if he was to become a serious and senior member in the President's United States come the 20th or 22nd of January.
All right, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you, Ivor Kaplan. He's a former Labour minister. Thank you very much for your thoughts. Right, let's bring in former Reform UK spokesperson Gowan Towler, who joins me now. Hello, Gowan. Thank you very much for joining me. How do you think Nigel will be reacting now? Because he's been very, you know, tame on Twitter, and I agree. You know, he's very. I think he's a very charming person, and he's responded in that way.
He said what I think he needs to say. I don't think he really needs to say a great deal more. What I think it shows is the level of integrity of Mr. Farage, in the sense that the suggestions were, even this morning on the Laura Kuenssberg show, that there was to be a fair amount of cash forthcoming from Mr. Musk, and Farage would prefer to keep his integrity than to take the money. And I think this actually shows. I can't tell you how proud I am of Nigel's response. Rather than kowtowing, to actually do what he's done.
And your thoughts? Do you agree that Tommy Robinson shouldn't really be a part of Reform UK?
Oh, no, of course not. I mean, I'm a little bit entertained that Tommy is now suggesting who should be the leader of Reform. Well, I don't think it's his call, frankly. He's not a member of the party, nor is the person he's suggesting to be a member of the party. And no, it doesn't work like that. I'm sorry about that. But no, we have spent, Nigel spent many years distancing himself from, not particularly Tommy himself, but the people who surround him. And it's a shame. There are so many good people who support Tommy Robinson and believe he's done some brave things. Maybe so, but he has also done many other things. And you can't do both. I'm sorry, you can't be part of the party. And I mean, Nigel called Musk out on this yesterday, I think. And Musk came back saying he knew that he was in for contempt in court and has now kicked back again. Well, so be it. I don't think this is going to have any impact on Nigel's relationship with Donald Trump. That's been going for many years now, whereas his knowledge of Musk is the last couple of weeks, really. So, no, I'm proud of Nigel. I'm proud of him standing up for what he believes and what he believes to be right.
But do you think that Elon Musk is right, in effect, that Tommy Robinson is a political prisoner, albeit he's in prison for contempt of court, but most people wouldn't be imprisoned for what he did?
Well, they would be. If you've broken the court's rules on more than one occasion, you would be in prison. The courts take contempt of court very, very seriously. And Tommy knew that. I mean, there's a sort of martyrdom thing going on, I think, with Tommy, that it's not unknowing. He's not a stupid man. He knew exactly what was happening, and he earns money out of it. So Tommy knew what he was doing when he broke the court's rules. The court made those rules, and that's the way it is. Now, I think over the years, Tommy has often been blamed for things he didn't do, but in this case, he did.
I mean, you know, but in a way, I think Elon is making the point that the punishment he's been given is somewhat harsh in comparison to a punishment that somebody else would receive. And part of that is that it is politically motivated.
Particularly since the new government's come in, but not just since then. It's been there for a while. The two-tier justice does exist. Now, I'm not an absolute expert on the intricacies of the Tommy Robinson case. I don't know, but we've seen that people who have been child abusers not being sent to jail, and yet people with hurty words on tweets being sent to jail. So, yeah, we know that does happen, and I think that's fed into Elon Musk's view of the country.
Well, I mean, because Tommy may have a point in that like you've even mentioned it, the two-tier justice system where some people would do exactly the same thing and not much would happen to them, but then
if you've broken contempt of court on more than one occasion, the courts chuck a big book at you. That's not unusual. That's not new.
It isn't a civil
case. They are very proud of their own.
But this is a civil case.
Importance.
But this is a civil case. So it's a civil case, which usually civil cases result in a fine of some description. Doesn't usually end with imprisonment. So it is unusual in a civil case for somebody.
Court, it does often, and particularly more than once. It does often, in fact, more often than not, end in imprisonment. What he's been sent down for.
Well, you know, I disagree with you on that, but.
Fair enough.
I'll disagree with you on that because I don't actually think that's right. But in this case, of course, it was a civil case. I don't know why he was imprisoned. I think that perhaps there may have been some other things going on. And I think that's the point that Elon was making.
He pulled the tail of British justice, and British justice was going to bite back.
Well,
and he did. And he did it knowingly and deliberately.
All right. Well, listen, Gowan, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. That's Gowan Towley. He's the former Reform UK spokesperson. Right, well, what do you think? Give me your thoughts, gbnews.com/your say. I will read some of those just after this. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'll be returning to my panel, co-founder of Novara Media, Aaron Bastani, and also co-deputy leader of Reform UK, Ben Habib, after this.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Fabio, thank you for coming in. It's great to see you. So you were born near Rome?
Yeah, in a very small town. It's called Serrone, about an hour south of Rome, on the hillside.
Was it a place of excellent cuisine?
It is, indeed. A place of excellent cuisine and red wines. In fact, it's the only DOCG red wine of the region,
Most of your career, I mean, this may seem self-evident, you've cooked Italian. I'm thinking that's quite a challenge to cook Italian in Malaysia, to cook Italian in Bermuda or Turkey. Was that a challenge?
It was, but I like challenges, so that's one of the reasons why I started to travel, because of my job. For example, in Malaysia, I've been sent there to twist a grill restaurant into an Italian restaurant inside a five-star hotel. And I was doing the chef training for the local chefs. And then I build the menus, I train the chefs, and then I eventually go back.
In Italian food, is there lots of innovation?
I would say in the past 10 years, yes. It used to be a very traditional cuisine, but in the past 10, 15 years, Italian chefs, they are a bit more open-minded, I would say.
Give us some examples of your innovation.
Well, hide and seek is very well around the innovation. In that bar is a bar and kitchen where we have a cherry plate concept, where we try to take our guests in a culinary journey starting from a classic dish and then reinventing into a modern twist. Usually I like to twist the style of cuisine between different countries, different continents.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
21 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. It's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is Elon Musk a help or hindrance to Reform UK? It's been a very wild 24 hours for the Reform Party. In the last couple of hours, Elon Musk tweeted, the Reform Party needs a new leader. Farage doesn't have what it takes. Nigel Farage responded saying, well, this is a surprise. Elon is a remarkable individual, but on this, I'm afraid I disagree. My view remains that Tommy Robinson is not right for reform, and I never sell out my principles. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is Elon Musk a help or hindrance to Reform UK? What do you think? Joining me now, co-founder of Novara Media, Aaron Bastani, and former co-deputy leader of Reform UK, Ben Habib. Aaron Bastani, I mean, I'd ask the question whether he's a help or hindrance in British politics, actually. Where do you stand with that first and then Reform UK?
I think he's a hindrance to British politics. I don't think he helps the political debate in this country. I think he probably helps the radical right, the right beyond the Conservative Party. And I think he's going to be a hindrance to reform.
Do you think a hindrance?
I think so, because, look, if they needed the money, then fine, but they're doing pretty well with regards to funding already, and I suspect that it's going to create problems in the long term. I know so many people, I'm sure many of your viewers and listeners are in the same position, people who are not particularly political, they probably even voted Labour in the last election, or they may even have voted for Corbyn. They just want to change. And these can be successful people, these can be young people, these can be old people. And there is the possibility of millions of people saying, these guys have never had a chance before, give them a shot. And I think Farage's strategy is trying to motivate and get that vote out in local elections and, of course, the next general election. And I think if all of a sudden you become associated with Tommy Robinson, mortgage fraud, travelling to the US with somebody else's passport, owes HMRC money, owes creditors $2 million, used to be a BNP member, in prison 4 times between 2005 and 2019, those people are thinking, well, maybe not actually. Maybe I don't want to be associated with that.
Aaron, no one is suggesting that Nigel or Reform should be associated with Tommy Robinson.
But that's how the media spin it. And Nigel Farage knows that as a politician, you need to tread carefully.
Yeah. What he needs to say, which is what I've always said, is I don't know Tommy. I'm neither an advocate for him, nor will I denounce him. But I certainly will not denounce those that follow Tommy Robinson. There are legitimate, good British people from all walks of life who are extremely concerned about what I call the gang rape gangs, because that's precisely what they were, and the terrific job that Tommy Robinson did bringing that into the public awareness. And frankly, Elon Musk has done us a huge favour. We haven't talked about the gang rape gangs, but my goodness, it's taken centre stage, and rightly so, hasn't it? And so all I would say to Reform is stop throwing people under the bus where you don't need to do it.
But this could be sour grapes from you.
No, it's not sour grapes. It's not sour grapes.
I'm hearing that potentially you're, not happy with the way Reform was going.
Oh, well, I resigned to the extent that I'm able to resign. I resigned.
But that's what I'm interpreting.
Yeah, but it's not bitter. I absolutely agree they're going in the wrong direction. I think Nigel is diluting the message considerably. He is pursuing failed Tory MPs and others to join Reform. For example, Marco Longhi, who stood in Dudley, has just been taken on by Reform. Yeah. And Andrew Southall, who was our fantastic candidate, who stood in the general election, got 2% less than Longhi, was lambasted by Longhi during the general election, discovered that Longhi's joined the party on social media. And that was a couple of days ago. And I had Andrew on the phone to me saying, this is absolutely outrageous. And of course it is outrageous. And so many
But that is politics, you know.
No, it's not politics.
It's rough and tough.
Nana.
People are slagging each other off all the time. But David Lamb slagged off Donald Trump and next.
No, but you don't. Marco Longhi, if he were to be taken on, it should have required the leadership of Reform to speak to Andrew Southall and say, this is happening. Have you got a view? What's the best way to manage this? We want to give you the heads up, so your nose isn't... He's now resigned.
But we can't all like everybody. Look,
Andrew's a great candidate. He's resigned, and he's not alone in the grassroots of Reform. There are many, many people who now feel disenfranchised by what's going on.
But I think that, you see, this is what we were talking about, playing the long game. But sometimes you act swiftly, too swiftly, without giving something time to breathe. I mean, that's how I feel about you in terms of your membership of your part in Reform UK. I think you could have waited, played a longer game, and then eventually got whatever it is you wanted done. And I think that's, you know, we can't all have things straight.
Nana, I would have done that if Reform, I would have stayed in Reform. Absolutely. I don't need to be in a senior position. I couldn't care less. I've said that repeatedly. But what is fundamentally, critically important to me is that Reform has a constitution and an organisational setup which is essentially democratic and where the leadership has checks and balances on it.
Yeah, but
that hasn't happened.
Yeah, but that's my point, though. It may not have happened, but it could happen. So in time, you have more power within than on the outside. So you can push.
But you're not within. You're just a subscriber. You've got no voice.
But I think that will obviously have to change, and others have expressed that. And I think in time it will happen. It will have to.
Well, I think it'll really have to happen.
Political party.
Yeah.
But you know it will have to happen. So that's why I just think that some people are throwing their toys out of the pram because they're not getting what they want, or they don't.
No, I'm not throwing my toys out of a pram.
I'm actually referring to the MP that you suggested, the guy who was upset because of Marco Longhi.
Andrew Southall.
Andrew Southall, and has resigned. I just think that politics has become a bit, oh, you've got more numbers than me on the ticker. Oh, well,
no, I mean, Andrew...
Oh, I don't like what he's saying. I'm going to go. I'm out of here. I'm throwing my toys out of the pram. There needs to be... We need politicians that are going to stand up and be counted because things will get rough.
Andrew did a great job for the party, and the party treated him extremely badly in the last couple of days. And there's a human element.
The last couple of days, come on.
But they just set him aside. They set him aside and took on board the man who had been attacking Andrew.
To be fair, they're not here to defend themselves, so we'll move on. But this is what I think. This is when I hear this sort of bickering in politics, I just think, look, the plan is to change this country for the better, and you need to unite. It's like watching a bad version of The Apprentice, where they haven't worked out that if the team wins, then we can make a change.
Yeah, you're only going to win if the cause is bigger than individuals. Yeah. That's the only way it happens. And look at Labour with Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer, talk about the long game. He clearly detests Jeremy Corbyn. He clearly lied through his teeth for years to become the Labour leader. Now, I'm not suggesting everybody needs to be like Keir Starmer. However, sometimes in politics, you have to park your private feelings about somebody and crack on. It's the same in work. I'm sure Ben has, you know, successful businessman, has worked with and alongside all sorts of people. He thinks, I'm not so keen on that person, but you work together for a greater good, for a particular enterprise to succeed.
Completely agree.
And so for this chap to have just left in that manner...
There's history there, Aaron. You need to know the history.
But there's a cause as well, right? If there's a cause, then you put your feelings to one side.
Yeah, you do. You do. But in a structure, in an organisation in which you can have faith, because there's some checks and balances in place. Andrew discovered that his nemesis in Dudley was taken into the party at the same time the world discovered it. It takes 20 minutes to just have a chat with him, settle him. It's just management. And that management would take place if the party leadership had proper checks and balances on it. It doesn't. It is 60% owned by Nigel. I'm sorry, and that is an unsustainable position.
Can I say something here? So you could have really good people management in an organisation or a political party and it be very authoritarian and undemocratic. So that could have happened without it being a democratic party. I suspect there's a subtext here, which is you feel that the people presently leading Reform, and I don't think that's just Farage, maybe it is, but the people at the top probably view people like that gentleman as expendable, little people. Is that right?
I mean, I don't know, but I do suspect that, absolutely, yeah. I do suspect that.
Well, he suspects it, they suspect it, they look at each other with eyes. What do you think? gbnews.com/your say. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. Welcome. If you just tuned in, where have you been? Breaking news on everything that's going on between Elon Musk and Nigel Farage. Elon Musk apparently denouncing of Nigel Farage leading the party of Reform UK. Will that harm Reform's recent polling success? What do you think? gbnews.com/your say. I promise I'll read them after this. Your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Nana, thank you. The top stories this hour. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has responded after Elon Musk said he doesn't have what it takes to lead the party. The Tesla and ex-CEO posted on X that Reform Party needs a new leader. This apparent turn comes just a few weeks after Nigel Farage travelled to Florida to meet with Musk about possible funding for his party. This news also comes less than 24 hours after Farage said there was no question on Musk supporting him personally. Nigel has responded saying, well, this is a surprise. Elon is a remarkable individual, but I'm afraid on this I disagree. My views remain that Tommy Robinson is not right for reform and I never sell out my principles. Elsewhere, heavy snow is causing some travel disruption in the UK as weather warnings remain in place. Manchester, Liverpool and Leeds Bradford airports all now reopening their runways. Leeds Bradford said some disruptions expected to continue throughout the day due to a backlog of departing flights, but the airport is expected for that situation to improve. The Met Office had issued 2 amber weather warnings for England and Wales, forecasting 3 to 7 centimetres of snow in some areas. One warning covering most of northern England, including Leeds, Sheffield and the Lake District, is in place until midnight tonight. Rural communities have been warned they could be cut off due to the weather, with some areas facing up to a foot of snowfall. The UK Health Security Agency has issued cold weather health alerts, which remain in place for all of England ahead of a week of low temperatures. And GB News can exclusively reveal the Prime Minister ignored a Rotherham whistleblower, Jane Senior's bullying complaint after she exposed child abuse and corruption while he was leader of the opposition in 2020. GB News national reporter Charlie Peters has the latest.
We've seen correspondence sent by Sir Keir Starmer's office that simply says, unfortunately, we won't be able to facilitate a meeting. Oh, but here is an online form for processing complaints. But fundamentally, I think what we've seen as a political reaction to this story, with both Kemi Badenoch from the Conservatives and Rupert Lowe from Reform and plenty of other commentators as well, they're all saying that, well, Jane Senior did have that national hero status. She was being bullied. Why didn't you take the time to meet with her, especially considering the reputation and fear that people had around the Labour Party and the CSE scandal and all the cover-ups?
And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to news alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. It remains on the cold side, looking ahead into next week. Further risk of rain, which should be heavy at times, but then turning drier, but perhaps some weather systems moving into the south. At the moment, though, low pressure dominating the weather pattern, bumping into that cold air. We've seen heavy snow push its way northwards, milder air pushing in, though, across southern counties, turning this to rain quite widely. Through this evening, further snow is expected across the higher ground, particularly northern England into southern Scotland. Further disruption possible as we head into Monday morning. Localised flooding as rain pushes eastwards across the rest of England and Wales. Overnight, icy stretches developing across Northern Ireland, Scotland. Further wintry showers here. So an unsettled start to Monday morning. Frequent snow showers pushing in across northern Scotland, some icy stretches, so do take care if you are travelling. Some clearer skies across the central belt, but then across the borders region, some heavy snow. There could be some tricky travelling conditions, as well as parts of Northern Ireland, Northern England, seeing further snow in places too. Wintry showers for Wales. Elsewhere, generally cloudy, rain across some eastern counties pulling away through the morning. So Met Office warnings remain in force for Monday morning for snow and ice across northern parts of the UK. Through the day, colder air seeps its way back southwards to all areas, so a mixture of some bright spells, but largely cloudy and frequent wintry showers pushing in from the north, though mostly falling as rain across southeastern parts, but a cold feeling day for everyone. Only a few degrees above freezing across the north, further south highs around 6 or 7. So much colder tomorrow compared to today. To end Monday, further wintry showers as this low pressure system pulls away, some brisk winds for a time along some eastern coasts, and temperatures widely falling below freezing and staying on the cold side over the next few days as well. Temperatures really struggling, particularly by midweek.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support.
It's you that make us the People's Channel.
As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions, and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. 37 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Back to our top story now. As Elon Musk loses faith in Reform UK leader Nigel Farage, will this harm Reform UK's position in the polls? Well, joining me now, political commentator Alice Grant. Alice, thank you very much for joining me. So I want to get your views, Alice, on whether you think that this will affect Reform UK in terms of the polls.
Thank you, Nana. Great to be here. I wonder how it will affect the polls. I think Nigel, in this case, is in the right. Firstly, if you look at Elon's Twitter, I mean, he tweets endlessly about British politics, but especially concerning the issue of Tommy Robinson and his joining of Reform Party. I think in this case, Nigel is very right to be speaking about an issue which is quite sensitive and divisive within British politics with a much better understanding than Elon could possibly have. And so it is well within Nigel's right to be able to say, listen, this is a man who has been in prison, who has a very, sensitive track record. And after all that Nigel has given to Reform and to this party, trying to, clean it up, make it very professional, it would be quite a shame to have that reputation tainted in any way. Because as he mentioned, I mean, Tommy has his own thing. He's self-funded, he does his own campaigns, and I don't think there's a place for him in Reform if they're very serious about winning the next general election.
Well, the point that Elon was making, though, is that Tommy Robinson is a political prisoner because what he is in prison for is a civil matter, which, it's contempt of court, which, again, do you think that Elon is actually makes a valid point?
I mean, he can have his opinion, but ultimately, we in British politics know much more about the situation here in our country. And I think Nigel especially has been in politics for so many years, in fact, over 2 decades. So he knows what he's talking about when it comes to the right eggs and the wrong eggs in politics. He has come incredibly far with Reform and has so much at stake here. Imagine if something were to go wrong, hugely wrong, at the next general election, to do with a figure who is divisive, who causes immense problems in the media. That could ruin everything and therefore really put at risk what we're fighting for here, which is much larger than just Reform, but it's for a return to conservative, sensible policies in Parliament, and to have a Parliament which actually represent the British people, and enough of the Labour Blairism.
Well, you say what we are doing here, trying to do here. So are you a member of Reform UK?
I'm not
or
sure
a subscriber?
UK. I'm not a subscriber, but I do agree with many of their policies. I think there's definitely a place for them in the Conservative Party as well. I do believe that we must be advocating for Conservative politics fundamentally. And so I think that there's a space to potentially collaborate. But at the moment, I'm not a subscriber of reform, even though I've been a supporter of Brexit since I was about 17, a massive campaigner for Nigel on his behalf when I was younger. Then I find myself quite direct about policies and more conservative.
Okay, so I'm going to come back to my question before, though, because what Elon Musk was saying was that Tommy Robinson is a political prisoner. Do you believe that Tommy Robinson, yes, he's in prison for contempt of court, but do you believe that was politically motivated, the fact that he's in prison, because that is usually a civil matter?
To be honest, I don't know much about Tommy Robinson. I don't know much about his history. I've seen things on the internet which I find particularly unpleasant in terms of the rhetoric being used. I think that we must try to have a political discourse which is not dominated by anger or by stirring up hatred. I know that these issues are extremely sensitive and do rightly make many people angry, but I think we must always be calm and diplomatic when we try to advance our agenda, which is obviously to protect Britons and to ensure a safe and conservative future for our nation. But I don't know much about him, so I can't speak for that.
All right.
But I do think that the rhetoric should be definitely... I don't really agree with much of what I've seen, so...
Okay. And do you think maybe, in terms of rhetoric, perhaps these people, everyone should just dial it down and stop scrapping on social media and things like that, just get on with the business of being a political party and putting policies in place and, giving this country something that people can, get behind?
Yeah, I agree. I think that sounds right. I think that we need to see action. We need to see real solutions. We need to think of practical solutions. As much as people can get behind big slogans and love a good news headline, I think that to really enact change, which this country desperately needs, is legal change. Kemi mentioned having a public inquiry over what's happened over the last few decades with the most vulnerable girls in our society being targeted by rape gangs. That is horrific and absolutely needs to take place. So I think we want to hear actual actionable plans. And I think that's the only way we're going to move forward.
All right, Alice, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. Of course, Tommy Robinson was one of those people that did push for some sort of action against these rape gangs, but he wasn't alone. Many others did the same. That was Alice Grant. She's a political commentator. Well, if you just tuned in, welcome. Where have you been? You've missed a lot. It's breaking news, 43 minutes after 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. Coming up, how is the rest of the world reacting to Elon Musk getting involved in British politics? Stay tuned as well, because Errol Musk will also be live just after 5.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Joined by international life coach Cheryl Findlay, who has joined forces with a Liverpool business owner, Kate Hill, of sustainable sportswear brand Lola Star, to empower women and inspire women across the nation. And to celebrate this partnership with the new Lola Star collection, the two will be hosting an exclusive event next Saturday.
The sportswear brand was launched after, well, your story. You lost how much weight?
So 16 stone, which is over £220, which
Wow.
I know is quite significant. But during that kind of decade-long journey, I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot about what it takes to be successful, to be happy, to be well, and to just live an incredible life every day.
Are you giving them goals to work towards or helping them structure their life?
Yeah, so I don't give out goals, absolutely not. It's all about whatever an individual wants. So what we do to begin with is we understand, like, where are you now? Where are you thriving? Where do you feel really happy and excited in your life? And what's lacking? Like, where would you like to feel better? Where would you like to improve? And then we take it from there.
I'd love to take that on board. I'd love to be my true self and fulfil my potential. So have you got any practical tips on how to do that?
Yeah, so we start with clarity, right? Like, you need to know, it's such a busy, fast-paced world we live in. There's so much sensory overload. You know, it'd be so easy to be distracted. So we need to kind of quiet all that noise down and start with, where do I want to focus? Pick 2 or 3 things. Where do I want to focus? And then we define the goal. What would I like that area of my life to look, not just look like, but feel like? And then we take it from there. So that's where you would start. I actually had a cancer diagnosis in 2019.
Oh.
And I just decided if I was going to be lucky enough to be on the other side of it, I wasn't going to play small anymore.
GB News, the people's...
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Right, I did promise, didn't I, that I'd read some of the Your Says. I'm Nana Akua. Welcome. This is at GB News. Breaking news, of course. You've heard about the spat between Nigel Farage and Elon Musk. It's just coming up to 47 minutes after 4 o'clock. Let's have a quick look at what you've been saying at home on gbnews.com/Your Say. Terry says reform have never needed to be cleaned up. And Adrian says no infighting in the Reform Party. It's Musk. Lucia says Musk can get lost. Edward says, Nana, this is the best thing to happen to Reform. They can cut their ties and forge their own way, as they have done already. Elon Musk is out of order. Bobby says, I agree with Ben Habib, 100%. Reform are letting Tories in regardless. That's not a vote winner. It will harm them. I won't be voting for them now. What are you going to vote for? There's nobody else. Well, there might be, but then you've got Keir Starmer, or you've got the Liberal Democrats, or you've got the Conservatives. And we've seen the work of all of those parties. Matt says, time to think clearly, ignore Musk, Robinson and Habib, and get firmly behind Farage, the only person who can achieve what we want and need. So, he said about you, Ben. Ben Habib joins me and Aaron Bastani. Ben Habib, what are your thoughts on that? Particularly the last one from Matt, who says, time to think clearly, ignore Musk, Robinson and Habib.
Yeah, well, I mean, a second ago, everyone was fating Musk. Of course, now Musk has, in my view, correctly pointed out the status of Tommy Robinson's incarceration. And just to reiterate, it's not relevant whether you support Tommy Robinson, whether you know him, love him or dislike him. The fact is, he is in jail as a result of the Attorney General, which is a political appointment, raising a contempt of court issue in a civil case, which is extraordinary, and he's been incarcerated for an incredibly long period of time. All of those are facts from which you cannot escape. And no one has been suggesting, least of all, as far as I'm aware, Tommy Robinson, or me for that matter, that Tommy Robinson should join Reform UK. That's fine. No one wants that. That's fine. But so I don't really understand Nigel's response to the whole thing. That's not the debate. The debate here, as you've correctly put to a number of people you've had on, is, do you agree with Elon Musk that Tommy Robinson is a political prisoner? And it's very hard to disagree with that assertion. And we've seen two-tier justice in play right across the board. Reform and Nigel bang on about the two-tier criminal justice system all the time. And it's highly unlikely that someone as divisive as they say that Tommy Robinson is would get a fair hand if we are living in a system with two-tier criminal justice. You know, it stands to reason.
It kind of depends how you look at it, because obviously people are taking into account previous... Maybe that's how they're doing it. I don't know how they make their judgments and come to their conclusions. But I just think that people need to be honest and answer the question whether they believe he's a political prisoner or not, whether you support them or not. But you've heard what some of the viewers are saying, that it's time to clearly ignore Musk, Robinson and Habib. They need to ignore that man over there.
Well, you know, I think it is really important to say that on Twitter, it can seem like we're all in the same boat. You know, we share a language. You know, we're divided by the same language with the United States. But ultimately, the British political sphere, our political system, our political culture is profoundly different to the US, profoundly different. Things like gun ownership are not at the centre of our debate. We have very different institutions. Our Conservative Party and our movement in this country, I'm on the left, is very different. The left is very different. We have a public healthcare system. So I think there's a real danger if you're on the right of British politics in just trying to appeal to random Americans on X. You know, I saw one guy, there's one right-wing influencer on X. He's based in Malaysia, and he's saying they should get rid of Nigel Farage and they should have Paul Golding. And I'm thinking, well, this gentleman doesn't leave his grandma's basement in Malaysia. I don't think he's particularly, you know, well placed to determine who should lead a political party trying to take out effectively the Conservatives.
Right. Well, let's get some reaction from the States then. Let's travel over to the US and have a chat with the host of the Politics People podcast, Paul Dudderidge. Paul, you've heard the spat that's going on X. I'd love to get your view on it and whether you think that Elon Musk has a point, that Tommy Robinson is a political prisoner. Where do the Americans... Are the Americans reading into this or taking any notice?
Not taking any notice at this end, I'll be honest. I think, yes, of course, Elon Musk is right that Tommy Robinson is a political prisoner. It's obvious and self-evident for anyone to see. The thing is, Elon Musk is right, but also Elon Musk is falling out with lots of other people who would be considered grassroots at this end. He and Steve Bannon, for instance, who is not a million miles away from Tommy Robinson in that he's kind of like a spiritual folk hero for the American grassroots of this movement. Bannon just called him a stone-cold liar whose paymasters are in China. So it isn't all cozy over here and accepting of Elon Musk and his opinions. It's kind of interesting to me that I do think Farage is wrong not to include Tommy Robinson because he has made huge sacrifices. And when they start saying, well, mortgage fraud, and he's done these, you know, he's been involved in this crime or that crime, whatever, it's just like, do you know who's getting elected in 2 weeks? Somebody who's had the entire American legal system thrown at him. We are literally electing the most powerful person in the world. People are not looking at those criminal justice interactions. They're ignoring them because they suspect it's coming from a biased establishment, and that's the thing. I just think it would be wiser if Farage. It might be too late for him now because it'll look like he's standing down. But he should have included Tommy Robinson. Tommy Robinson supported him during the election massively.
Hold on. We're slightly different to Trump because you've either committed mortgage fraud or you haven't. And it's clear if you have or you haven't, or if you've gone somewhere on a fake passport or somebody else's passport. That's also obvious as well. So I'm just saying, I think with the Trump stuff, a lot of it was actually trumped up. A lot of it.
Trump has been found guilty of 34 criminal felonies. He's about to be sentenced on Friday.
But
do we honestly...
But you and I were speaking at the time, it felt like they were just trying to... It was lawfare. They were trying to find anything they could chuck at him. So I don't think that's the same in the case of Tommy Robinson. But anyway, carry on. Well, I believe Tommy Robinson is incarcerated currently because of lawfare. That's how it looks to me. And I'm just saying that everybody clutching their pearls and saying, well, Tommy Robinson, you know, he's not one of us, and you know, he's crossed the line legally. I'm kind of going, well, we have a 34 felony president being elected in 2 weeks. And the thing about the British National Party, whether he was in the British National Party, it's like we've got Labour councillors all over the country that were former members of the British National Party. I do think there is no reform without there's no reform without Farage. There's no MAGA without Trump. Well, I'm going to look into that about Labour councillors, former Labour councillors who are part of the BNP, because I'm not sure whether that's true, but I'm going to check those stats out. Paul Dudderidge, any final thoughts then? How will the spat end? You've got about 20 seconds.
I think eventually Elon and Trump will fall out.
Oh, crikey. I hope not. Listen, Paul Dudderidge, really good to talk to you. Thank you so much. He's the host of the Politics People podcast, and you can catch him on that every day of the week. Well, loads still to come here on GB News, but coming up, Elon Musk's dad, Errol Musk. Yes, Errol Musk, Elon's dad himself, will join me shortly. He told GB News last week Nigel Farage is a weak leader. Let's get some weather.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. It remains on the cold side, looking ahead into next week. Further risk of rain, which should be heavy at times, but then turning drier, but perhaps some weather systems moving into the south. At the moment, though, low pressure dominating the weather pattern, bumping into that cold air. We've seen heavy snow push its way northwards, milder air pushing in, though, across southern counties, turning this to rain quite widely. Through this evening, further snow is expected across the higher ground, particularly northern England into southern Scotland. Further disruption possible as we head into Monday morning. Localised flooding as rain pushes eastwards across the rest of England and Wales. Overnight, icy stretches developing across Northern Ireland, Scotland. Further wintry showers here. So an unsettled start to Monday morning. Frequent snow showers pushing in across northern Scotland. Some icy stretches, so do take care if you are travelling. Some clearer skies across the central belt, but then across the borders region, some heavy snow. There could be some tricky travelling conditions, as well as parts of Northern Ireland, Northern England, seeing further snow in places too. Wintry showers for Wales. Elsewhere, generally cloudy, rain across some eastern counties pulling away through the morning. So mental risk warnings remain in force for Monday morning for snow and ice across northern parts of the UK. Through the day, colder air seeps its way back southwards to all areas, so a mixture of some bright spells, but largely cloudy and frequent wintry showers pushing in from the north, though mostly falling as rain across southeastern parts, but a cold feeling day for everyone. Only a few degrees above freezing across the north. Further south, highs around 6 or 7, so much colder tomorrow compared to today. To end Monday, further wintry showers as this low pressure system pulls away. Some brisk winds for a time along some eastern coasts, and temperatures widely falling below freezing and staying on the cold side over the next few days as well. Temperatures really struggling, particularly by midweek.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£50,000 in tax-free cash is like having over £4,000 each month to play with for a whole year. And it could be yours in the biggest Great British giveaway so far. That could be a holiday each month, your mortgage covered, or just the ability to send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
But it turns out there's a growing number of grandparents who are now taking up the hobby.
And not all of them are male. 7 million gamers are aged over 50, 7 million of them. And we're going to introduce you to one this morning. Her name's Kath Bowie. She's 76 years of age, and Kath has become a worldwide star of the game Fortnite. Good to see you, Kath.
Hello, good morning to both of you.
Morning.
And tell me this, Kath, is Bowie your real name?
Bowie. Yeah.
Bowie.
Yeah, it is my real name, yes.
And you do it a Bowie and not a Bowie?
It's a Bowie, yes, definitely Bowie, yes.
Bowie or Bowie?
Bowie.
Bowie.
But that's not what the Jim Bowie was called, or Jim Bowie was called in the Alamo. He was a Bowie.
No, but that's what I'm called, Kath Bowie.
Oh,
She's their own superstar.
You are your own superstar. You are indeed. Well, so we're led to believe, Kath, that there's nobody else like you, or very few people like you, but there is. There is lots of people your age, your stage, doing what you do.
Yes, there's not a lot that streams. Okay, Fortnite, but there's definitely plenty that plays. Any game, you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be Fortnite. It can be any game.
So Kath, how did you get started in all of this?
Oh yeah, well it's 7 years ago actually. I walked into my teenage grandson's bedroom and just saw him playing what I now know, of course, what I play is Fortnite. And that was the very first week that Epic had released it. And it was just really love at first sight.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon and welcome. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. It's 5 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's yours, and of course it's theirs. And throughout the show, we'll be asking you what your thoughts are. Joining me, I've got Ben Habib, former Deputy Co-Leader of Reform UK, and also political commentator Aaron Bustani. But next, let's get your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Nana, thank you very much and good afternoon. The top stories from the GB Newsroom. Well, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has responded after Elon Musk said he doesn't have what it takes to lead the party. Farage said, well, this is a surprise. Elon is a remarkable individual, but I'm afraid on this, I disagree. My view remains that Tommy Robinson is not right for reform, and I never sell out my principles. Well, that's all after Musk posted on X saying the Reform UK party leader needs a new leader. Well, this apparent turn comes just a few weeks after Nigel Farage travelled to Florida to meet with Musk about possible funding for his party. It also comes less than 24 hours after Farage said there was no question on Musk supporting him personally. In other news, heavy snow is causing some travel disruption in the UK as weather warnings remain in place. Manchester, Liverpool and Leeds Bradford airports have all now reopened their runways. Leeds Bradford says some disruption is expected to continue throughout the day due to a backlog of departing flights, but the airport expected the situation to improve. The Met Office had issued 2 amber weather warnings for England and Wales, forecasting 3 to 7 centimetres of snow in some areas. One warning covering most of northern England, including Leeds, Sheffield and the Lake District, is in place until midnight tonight. Rural communities have been warned they could be cut off due to the weather, with some areas facing up to a foot of snowfall. The UK Health Security Agency has issued cold weather health alerts, which remain in place for all of England ahead of a week of low temperatures. In other news, more NHS patients who need elective care will be able to decide where they'll receive their treatment under new government plans to cut waiting lists. This falls under the new upgrades coming to the NHS app, which Health Secretary Wes Streeting says will shift the NHS into the digital age. Experts have welcomed the move, but warn that digital innovations must not create new barriers and come at the expense of excluding those without a smartphone. The Health Secretary spoke to GB News about the plans.
Prime Minister and I tomorrow are setting out the actions we are taking to get those waiting times down. And yes, that's about the investment the Chancellor announced in the budget, but it is also about the reform that's needed. We've got to modernise the NHS, giving patients more choice, more power, more control, more ease, more convenience over booking their appointments, choice about where to be treated. We'll do that through the NHS app, frankly, bringing the NHS in line with most other service providers in this country.
GB News can exclusively reveal the Prime Minister ignored a Rotherham whistleblower Jane Senior's bullying complaint after she exposed child abuse and corruption while he was leader of the opposition in 2020. GB News national reporter Charlie Peters reports.
We've seen correspondence sent by Sir Keir Starmer's office that simply says, unfortunately, we won't be able to facilitate a meeting. Oh, but here is an online form for processing complaints. But fundamentally, I think what we've seen as a political reaction to this story, with both Kemi Badenoch from the Conservatives and Rupert Lowe from Reform and plenty of other commentators as well, they're all saying that, well, Jane Senior did have that national hero status. She was being bullied. Why didn't you take the time to meet with her, especially considering the reputation and fear that people had around the Labour Party and the CSE scandal and all the cover-ups?
Well, a Labour Party spokesperson has responded to the claims, saying all complaints are treated seriously and thoroughly assessed in line with our rules and procedures. Complaints are assessed via a specific process independent of the leader's office, and this was clearly signposted in response to this correspondence at the time. And earlier, the Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp spoke to GB News and called for a new national inquiry.
Do now need a full public inquiry to look at this comprehensively. That should include looking at all the towns involved. It should include looking at Keir Starmer's record as Director of Public Prosecutions.
Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More in half an hour.
Welcome if you just tuned in. Where have you been? We've had a busy show. It's just coming up to 6 minutes after 5 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. Let's return to the breaking news. Elon Musk said this on social media on X. The Reform Party needs a new leader. Farage doesn't have what it takes. Then Nigel Farage responded saying, well, this is a surprise. Elon is a remarkable individual, but on this, I am afraid I disagree. My view remains that Tommy Robinson is not right for reform, and I never sell out my principles. Then Elon now appears to support Reform MP Rupert Lowe, remarking that it makes a lot of sense for him to become the party's leader. Well, joining me now is father of Elon Musk, Errol Musk. Errol, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon.
Thank you.
So, Errol, it's been a very busy day on social media, people tweeting away to each other. I mean, do you approve of what your son Elon is saying about Nigel Farage? Should Nigel Farage step down as the Reform UK leader?
Well, you know, on Friday the 3rd, I spoke on your channel, and as it happened, I said that, in my opinion, this was before these tweets. In my opinion, Farage is not strong enough to be the leader of the UK. You know, I can see that. It's quite clear to me. He speaks sense, but he doesn't have the strength for that, in my opinion. And subsequently now we've had this tweet from Elon, and I haven't spoken to Elon, but I agree. I completely agree with him. In fact, to any student of history, although it may sound terribly shocking to your viewers, to any student of history, the future Prime Minister of England is Tommy Robinson.
Do you think?
I know that's very hard for you to comprehend, but you have to read some history. You know, the vast majority of leaders in many countries were jailed on the same basis that Robinson was jailed. And so the future is for Tommy Robinson. And now we will see, unless they can get to him first and, you know, sort of take him out or whatever it is. But no, the future is for Tommy Robinson. The current government is a joke. You know, it's just an absolute joke. I don't know how they even, I don't know how there's a shame to keep sitting there, John, to tell you the honest truth.
But, you know, you say that, but, you know, Tommy Robinson's got a list of criminal convictions as long as your arm, and he has been a political figure that in this country has been somewhat divisive. And, you know, to be somebody who leads this country, I think you'd have to have a bit more of a moderate stance on things, or you don't think so? You know, and I don't think, you know, whether you agree with him or not, I just think he can be very polarising, and I don't know whether that would work.
Yes. No, look, no, I completely agree with you. I mean, to the ordinary mind and to the mind that seeks, you know, a certain sort of peace of mind and everything, yes, you're quite right. However, history tells us differently. History tells us quite clearly that the future is for people like Tommy Robinson. Tommy Robinson has had the guts to stick his neck out. Tommy Robinson has had the guts to say what he thinks. Tommy Robinson has probably got more people who agree with him than anyone else in England. They're just frightened to say so. Now, this is just something from the past. You can read it. You know, there are so many examples, not only in the rest of the world, but in Europe, of people who are jailed on flimsy pretexts like Tommy Robinson to try and get him out of the way. And honestly, as hard it may be for somewhat high-class or class-type society, because Tommy's like a sort of ordinary sort of person, which is nice, I think. But he's the future for England. He's the future Prime Minister.
You think? Well, OK, so I hear what you're saying. I know there are a lot of people who probably would be frightened to support him because, obviously, when you're a polarising figure, then you can draw... You know, what happens in the end is that people just think, oh, well, I better back off you because otherwise it will end up on me, then no one's going to vote or go with me. Nigel Farage is distancing himself from Tommy Robinson, and probably wisely and sensibly. But if it's not Nigel Farage and if it's not Tommy Robinson, because obviously I don't think Tommy would lead Reform UK, who do you think, instead of Nigel Farage, would you suggest?
Yes. Look, it's possible for someone of strength to step forward and, pave the way for, in due course, again, probably Tommy Robinson, so in the interim. But I would say that, I would say it's not easy to pick anyone out. I have seen that Low chap, he seems stronger. I'm not sure, but whoever it's going to be has to step forward, and you'll know that person when they step forward. It's just the way it works. That's how it works. Unfortunately, as you know, it's easier to predict the weather than it is to predict politics. But, that is what history teaches us. Yeah. History teaches us that it is people like Tommy Robinson that will actually lead the country in due course out of the circumstances that it's got.
But your son seems to think that Rupert Lowe, like you said, would potentially be someone who could step into the fray instead of Nigel. Why Rupert?
But definitely not Nigel Farage.
Why not? What is it about Rupert Lowe that you think brings something additional to the table that people will get behind?
It's a sort of feeling a man gets, when you see someone talk and you see how they behave. It's difficult to put it into sort of words, but you get the feel of what it's about. It's what makes a film star. What makes a top politician. It's very difficult to say. But with Farage, he talks sense. He does definitely talk sense. But his actions and his behaviour to another man, let's say, do not, to me at any rate, do not reflect the what is needed for real leadership. He has been a good person. I can easily see him as a good wingman. I can easily see him as a minister of the government. Oh, yes, easily. But I do not see him as the leader of such a government. Someone who's prepared to literally be crucified for their beliefs. That's what you need, not someone who's waiting for his next fag.
Well, but you could say that Nigel Farage has been that. I mean, he stepped out when it was for Brexit. Even though he was vilified for it, he stepped out and he's done what is needed to get to where he needs to be. Because he's done what's needed, hasn't he? I mean, Nigel's done what is needed.
Let's give him a chance. This is England we're talking about, after all, the country that gives people a second chance. So let's give Nigel a second chance. Let's see what he can come up with now. He has to come up with the goods. He has to come up with the goods. He can't turn his back on these rapes. He can't turn his back on Tommy Robinson. He can't do that. That's out of the question. What does he think he's doing? He's just siding with Starmer. No. He has to get on his hind legs and start doing something. No.
But he's
the time
been
for sort of, lazy, easygoing leadership, that's out. Doesn't work anymore. We've seen that in America.
But he has been consistent in his stance on Tommy Robinson, so he's not suddenly going, oh, 1 minute he thinks that and 1 minute he thinks something else. And that is, again, something that he's not flip-flopping. He's staying with what he thinks. But what do you think, though, in terms of your son Elon getting involved in British politics? Why do you think that he seemed so active and getting so involved in it? A lot of people
Elon, my son.
Yeah. Why is he getting so involved?
In reality, in life, once you get your bread and butter existence behind you, in other words, once you get to a point where you don't have to go to work every day and fix electrical fittings or plumbing or whatever it is you do, and you get to the point where you're actually free to think, then you get to the part of life that is the most important part of life. And as I've always described it, in fact, my history professor told me, politics is 50% of life. And if you don't, you have to get into it if you can finally afford to do so. It takes time because most people are stuck in their jobs. They can't do it. But if they were free, they would express themselves politically much more because politics is 50% of everything. Now we have Elon, who's in a position finally after so many years to actually express himself politically, which he hasn't been able to do for all his life. because he's been so busy trying to, basically, you might say, earn a living, believe it or not. So, yeah, so once you can earn a living and once you're free of that, you either join something of political nature and become part of it. It's just the way it happens. That is life. That is the way it works. And so I'm very happy that he's doing that. And it's very good, very, very good.
Well, last time we spoke, we were talking about the 100 million that was being touted that Elon might donate to Reform UK. Do you think Elon will still consider donating something to the party?
Oh, yes, absolutely. You know, if Elon sees for the time being, he's a private citizen. You do realize he's a private citizen for the time being. So, after the 20th of this month, of course, assuming he goes into the cabinet there in the United States, he's no longer a private citizen. So anything he does would have to be ratified by the President of the United States. So a different scenario will be in place. But if it's a question of, from his personal funds and he gets permission to do so, he can loan, Reform or whoever that looks like they're able to do things properly and get things going. There's no reason why he can't do that. It's done all over the world. And if it's a question of not being a donation, if it's a question of taking a loan, I can imagine, I remember in my own case, I've had to take loans in my life to do things. So it's, the people who loaned me the money were only concerned about getting their money back. That's all. No, I think he would likely have no problem if it's not against the rules or something, against the law, helping whoever comes forward. And it might be Farage. Maybe he gets it together. Let's see what he can do. Let's give him what England always does, give you a second chance.
Yeah, Britain, I know what you mean. But so where you are looking over at the United Kingdom and our political structure and what's happening in this country, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, all the people like myself, we all, for a start, we all speak English. And we are all children of England. All the Commonwealth countries became sort of children of England. And everything we did, was based on what happened in England. We've always looked at England as the place that you take an example from. I remember as a young engineer, I'd be working by the big office that I worked in at that time, and they tell us the man from England is here. And we'd all sort of like be trying to see him, because he always had a pinstripe suit on and a flower in his lapel and all that sort of thing, and we'd all trying to see him just to see, because he's the man from England. And so England has always been our beacon for the people. And I would even include most or a large portion of the people of the United States see it exactly the same way. We expect an example from England that blows us out of the water, not that we have to look at England and say, oh, my word, we have to get back on the boats and get back there and see what we can do, because we've all benefited so much from England in these countries, roads, education systems, everything that the world never had. England came along and just plonked it on everybody. I mean, you just can't deny that. And so when we see England in trouble, it breaks our heart. I mean, it's a heartbreaking situation.
Yeah.
It's really not good. I love the way England has introduced or accepted people from all over the world to come and stay there, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful. But that doesn't mean that England must go down the drain. Yeah. England is England, after all. We could go back thousands of years and some bloke would be saying the same thing I'm saying, if you know what I mean.
Exactly. I do agree with you, and I find it shocking that people dare to even ask for reparations, given the positive things that have been brought around the world. But do you think that Reform UK will win the next general election? Do you think they'll win?
Well, I do. I don't really have a good idea of them, but I do know that from what I've read, that if an election were held now, Labour would lose 200 seats. So that's what I think should happen. Elon has called for Parliament there to be dissolved because your country is not operating on a mandate. It's making its own mandate. It's deciding its own way, and it's ignoring the people. I mean, that's completely obvious. And so, what's needed here is for the present government, because there's no confidence in them, they should have the guts to, resign. They should hold a new election. If they are re-elected, well, then we know. But the fact is, I think if you had another election now, they would lose 200 seats.
Yeah, I don't think they would win. And presumably you're very proud of your son. I asked you that last time. Of course you are.
Yes.
Errol Musk, really good to talk to you. Thank you for taking the time out to talk to me.
Oh, so Nana, it's such a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. You take care. That's Errol Musk. That's Elon Musk's dad. Well, joining me to get their thoughts on the conversation, founder of Novara Media, Aaron Bastani, and former co-deputy leader of Reform UK, Ben Habib. Aaron Bastani. He's a very lovely man, isn't he?
Well, he was very affable to you, but some of the things he was saying were a bit out there, shall we say.
Do you think?
Yeah,
I don't like to criticise.
What specifically?
I don't like to criticise them when they're not in the room and they can't answer back. But for instance, Tommy Robinson becoming the Prime Minister of the UK just strikes me as rather outlandish. And I think it gets back to the point I said, half an hour ago, that for lots of these people, Elon Musk, perhaps his dad as well, they think that we have the American system. If we had an American system, you'd have a Republican primary. Somebody like Tommy Robinson can run. They might do quite well. We have a parliamentary system. You have to build an organisation. And by the way, that's not all good. It rewards often nepotism, people who are obsequious, not effectively very talented, but they're bag carriers. They do what they're told. I don't think our system is all good, but our system is our system. And I think given the nature of that system, it's highly unlikely, I say close to impossible, famous last words, that Tommy Robinson would be the Prime Minister. And I will say this, for people on the left, they are gleeful at all of this, because the prospect of an alliance between Reform, people to their right, and the world's wealthiest person was terrifying. It would absolutely be terrifying to Labour and to Keir Starmer and to people in that world. And this morning, it's just seemingly collapsed.
Well, I don't know. It could be a bit of a PR game here, but Ben Habib.
Well, I thought he was an incredibly charming, lovely man. And to describe his son as having made enough money to sort of have bread and water, or however he said it, and therefore can turn his eye to politics, when his son is actually the richest man in the world, I think is testimony to the humility that Errol has. And indeed, coming on, if I may say so, as the father of the richest man in the world, to GBNews and giving his views frankly.
Very nice.
And I love his association with England. I mean,
he's right on so many levels.
England has a fantastically rich history. But I do agree with Aaron that we have a parliamentary system which requires depth and breadth of people to come forward. And what was so great about the Conservative Party was that it used to have 2.8 million members, and it was very closely in touch in the 1950s and 60s, very closely in touch with what the people in this country wanted. It's now got very few members, 130 or 140,000. And what Kemi needs to do, if she wants to, we haven't talked about Kemi Badenoch, who, remember, she is the leader of the opposition. What Kemi needs to do is get in touch with these, with where the people of this country are, and build up her membership if she doesn't want to see the Conservative Party, which is the oldest political party in the world, being obliterated. And this may be the kind of impetus that she needs in order to see the direction of travel she needs to go down. Alternatively, as Errol was saying, it might be precisely what Nigel needs to wake up. And he said it's very English, very British, to give people a second chance. And everyone should be entitled to a second chance. And let's see if Nigel does reform. It's what I've been calling for. If Nigel does it, there's every chance he could succeed. But so far, what I've seen is someone who's not prepared to reform that which is so calling out for it.
It's been a very short time, though, let's be fair. And
it's actually Nana's been a lot longer. I've been calling it for it privately since 2019.
Okay,
since 2019.
But the party has only really kind of reshaped itself since the election was called by Rishi Sunak and Nigel decided, look, I'm going to lead this thing and get things going. So, they've got time to construct. And I would advise them, and anyone who's constructing a political party, to do it in a timely, not quickly.
No, but the election's going to be on us really quickly.
Yeah, OK. Quickly, Errol Bastani, final 30 seconds to you.
Best case scenario for the left and for Labour is for Elon Musk to fund a Tommy Robinson-style party that gets 7 or 8% in general elections and absolutely screws reform. That's the best thing that Keir Starmer could work for. I know Christmas is behind us, but, for the next
But you're not surely pro-Starmer, are you?
Well,
I'm just trying to be objective and fair.
But he's right, isn't he? Right, next, GB News can reveal that Sir Keir Starmer ignored a Rotherham whistleblower's complaint after she exposed child abuse.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
In 2020, after almost 80 years, Oxford University's Pitt Rivers Museum removed its famous collection of shrunken heads with sewn-up lips and eyes made by the South American Shuar and Ashwar people. How do museums decide what should be shown and what should be confined to storage? Can controversial exhibits be left on display with suitable contextualisation in captions? Who would want to be a curator facing such controversial questions? For review, I'm delighted to be joined by journalist Eitan Smallman. Welcome to GB News. I think many people, when they hear that we're going to discuss museums or art galleries, think that it's going to be, that wokery question. But it strikes me, and I think it strikes you too, that this is not just about wokery at all. There are some really interesting ethical questions here. For example, let's start with this one, and there are several examples of it. Should we be displaying human bodies, the remains of human beings? Should we be displaying them in museums?
Absolutely. It's not just the usual suspects, young snowflakes, who are objecting to these things. There are just naturally cultural shifts, and people of all ages and all political persuasions may feel uneasy about displaying human remains of any kind, especially human remains that have been taken against the will of the communities or taken violently. Hilary Mantel led a campaign to remove a 7-foot 7-inch skeleton of Charles Byrne, known as the Irish Giant, from the Hunterian Museum. He had specifically said that he didn't want to be displayed and didn't want to be taken by anatomists, and yet was displayed for a couple of hundred years until a couple of years ago. He hasn't had the burial he requested, but he's no longer on public display.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
This is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and he did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, 27 minutes after 5 o'clock. If you've just tuned in, welcome. I'm Nana Akua. Now, let's go on to grooming gangs, because there's a huge scandal, and GB News can reveal that Sir Keir Starmer ignored a Rotherham whistleblower's bullying complaint after she exposed child abuse and corruption whilst he was leader of the opposition in 2020. Now, joining me is commentator Dr. Lisa McKenzie. Lisa, thank you very much for joining me. So, Lisa, this is interesting because obviously we've had Jess Phillips saying that she didn't want another inquiry and saying that the Oldham should do it themselves. But a national inquiry, which I would like to see, with all the areas that this is going on with and trying to find out how it's become such an, in my view, epidemic, would potentially uncover information like this. Where do you stand with what we've just learned?
Well, I've been writing, researching and working on class inequality in Britain for over 20 years now. And what I'd like to do is put back to the centre the victims, or now the survivors of this scandal, who were poor, white, working class girls that were valueless and completely devalued. And, you know, I'd sort of take issue with Elon Musk's dad, who thinks that Britain gives everybody a second chance. Because when we're talking about poor, white, working class girls from council estates who live in these communities, they wasn't even given one chance. And I think it's more than time we put those girls and their families and the way that class inequality works in this country right at the centre of this. What we've heard over the last many, many years. I've been arguing and debating this, particularly with the left, over many years. You know, we talk about the men who were involved, you know, their ethnicity, their culture. We've talked about the police that allowed this to happen. We've talked about social workers, school teachers, etc., etc. But what we almost always fail to talk about is why is it that poor white working class girls can become victim to almost anybody that wants to abuse them. And for me, that's really where we need to be. And I would welcome a national inquiry. I think this is on the scale, perhaps even greater than the Stephen Lawrence case. And the Stephen Lawrence case, when we had the inquiry about that, it came out, we found out that there was institutionalised racism, there was corruption in the police, and that's why the killers of Stephen Lawrence never was brought to justice. I think if we had something similar, and it was so alarming, like the Stephen Lawrence case, I think we could perhaps start to look at class and gender in this country.
Well, look, in defence of Errol, what he was talking about was, you know, when people come to this country, I think he was talking about it being a place that opportunities are given. I think that's the point he was making. But I hear you, because it does seem very odd that Jess Phillips would say that she doesn't think that we need to have another inquiry. And I do appreciate there have been certain inquiries, but I don't believe there's been one on a truly national scale that fully looks into this, and also the actions of others within the council and
can I just
the political classes.
Say something about, so in March this year there was a council meeting in Oldham. Now I read these reports. I'm an academic. I read the reports. In Oldham there was a council meeting. There was 4 motions. 2 of those motions was on Gaza. And the 4th motion was about grooming gangs and why the report that had been written, why nothing had been actioned. That 4th motion was pushed back right to the end of the meeting, where they actually ran out of time. But there was 2 motions that they spoke for, you know, a lengthy amount of time on Gaza. And I think that's really, really... This is the way I think grooming gangs and poor white young working class girls are looked at. They are behind everything else. You know, so in Oldham, the place where, you know, sort of almost started this new wave of discussion, you know, they had a chance to talk about the grooming gangs and to talk about what they could do after the report. But instead, they chose to use that time to talk about something that's happening in the Middle East that it will have no influence on the people who live in Oldham, whereas this does. And and for year after year after year, I have seen this. These girls are being pushed to the bottom of everybody's priorities.
Well, so what do you make of this Miss Senior, I think it is her name? She told the Telegraph that she found she went to complain about what was happening and was literally and actually wrote to them about it and was turned away. This does seem a bit of a, you know, it feels like another inquiry as a national one, and one that is done by maybe the Home Office, a Home Office-led one or an independent one, would probably reveal more of this kind of happening with a lot of people higher up the chain.
Yeah, and this is not just, and I don't think Labour is. I think Labour has got a lot of blame in this, because the areas that this has been happening has been in Labour-controlled areas, and they didn't want the hassle of it, to be honest. But also some of the Tories as well. I mean, we've had a Tory government for 14 years. You know, this has been coming up constantly. And one of the arguments that I have, particularly with people on the left, is they don't want to talk about this because they say the far right has taken it. Well, of course the far right have taken it, because the left have absolutely abandoned class politics in this country. So when we start talking about white working class girls, labels who mean absolutely nothing to most parts of the left. And how do I know that? Because I can see over the last year, the left have been obsessive. I mean, for 7 or 8 years, they were obsessive about one man, Corbyn. Now they're obsessive about Gaza.
Well, to be fair, look, we're running out of time, but to be fair, all of this literally took part whilst the Conservatives were in power, and they're supposedly meant to be more right-leaning. So I hear you, but DEI and net zero all came through under the Tories. Lisa McKenzie, Dr. Lisa McKenzie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, earlier, GBNews spoke to Health Secretary Wes Streeting about this, and here's what he had to say.
Look, when it comes to tackling the serious issue of child sexual exploitation and abuse, I do think that online giants, social media companies have got a big part to play in helping us to identify and prosecute perpetrators of child sexual exploitation and abuse. So whether it's Elon Musk or anyone else, if those leaders of those giants want to work with this government, we're willing to work with tech giants to make sure that we keep young people safe online and free from exploitation.
All right, that was Wes Streeting earlier on GB News. You're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. Still to come, it's Divorce Day tomorrow, and I'll have all the tips to how you can have a good separation. But first, let's get your latest news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Nana, thank you. The top stories. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has responded after Elon Musk said he doesn't have what it takes to lead the party. Farage said, well, this is a surprise. Elon is a remarkable individual, but I'm afraid on this I disagree. My view remains that Tommy Robinson is not right for reform, and I never sell out my principles. That's after Musk posted on X saying the Reform UK party needs a new leader. This apparent turn comes just a few weeks after Nigel Farage travelled to Florida to meet with Musk about possible funding for his party. It also comes less than 24 hours after Farage said there was no question on Musk supporting him personally. Elon's father, Errol Musk, spoke to Nana Akua.
Friday the 3rd, I spoke on your channel, and as it happened, I said that, in my opinion, this was before these tweets, in my opinion, Farage is not strong enough to be the leader of the UK. You know, I can see that. It's quite clear to me. He speaks sense, but he doesn't have the strength for that, in my opinion. And subsequently now we've had this tweet from Elon, and I haven't spoken to Elon, but I agree. I completely agree with him.
And heavy snow is causing some travel disruption in the UK as weather warnings remain in place. Manchester, Liverpool and Leeds Bradford airports have all now reopened their runways. The Met Office had issued 2 amber weather warnings for England and Wales, forecasting 3 to 7 centimetres of snow in some areas. One warning covering most of northern England, including Leeds, Sheffield and the Lake District, is in place until midnight tonight. Rural communities have been warned they could be cut off due to the weather, with some areas facing up to a foot of snowfall. The UK Health Security Agency has issued cold weather health alerts, which remain in place for all of England ahead of a week of low temperatures. And those are the latest headlines for now. It's back to Nana.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. It remains on the cold side, looking ahead into next week. Further risk of rain, which should be heavy at times, but then turning drier, but perhaps some weather systems moving into the south. At the moment, though, low pressure dominating the weather pattern, bumping into that cold air. We've seen heavy snow push its way northwards, milder air pushing in, though, across southern counties, turning this to rain quite widely. Through this evening, further snow is expected across the higher ground, particularly northern England into southern Scotland. Further disruption possible as we head into Monday morning. Localised flooding as rain pushes eastwards across the rest of England and Wales. Overnight, icy stretches developing across Northern Ireland, Scotland. Further wintry showers here. So an unsettled start to Monday morning. Frequent snow showers pushing in across northern Scotland, some icy stretches, so do take care if you are travelling. Some clearer skies across the central belt, but then across across the borders region, some heavy snow. There could be some tricky travelling conditions, as well as parts of Northern Ireland, Northern England, seeing further snow in places too. Wintry showers for Wales. Elsewhere, generally cloudy, rain across some eastern counties pulling away through the morning. So Met Office warnings remain in force for Monday morning for snow and ice across northern parts of the UK. Through the day, colder air seeps its way back southwards to all areas, so a mixture of some bright spells, but largely cloudy and frequent wintry showers pushing in from the north, though mostly falling as rain across southeastern parts, but a cold feeling day for everyone. Only a few degrees above freezing across the north, further south highs around 6 or 7. So much colder tomorrow compared to today. To end Monday, further wintry showers as this low pressure system pulls away, some brisk winds for a time along some eastern coasts, and temperatures widely falling below freezing and staying on the cold side over the next few days as well. Temperatures really struggling, particularly by midweek.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, it's just coming up to 41 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. You can also stream the show live on YouTube, or why not download the GB News app. It is completely free. But let's return to the ongoing grooming gang scandal. And GB News can reveal that Sir Keir Starmer ignored a Rotherham whistleblower's bullying complaint after she exposed child abuse and corruption whilst he was leader of the opposition in 2020. So joining me to react to this is co-founder of Novara Media, Aaron Bastani, also former co-deputy leader of Reform UK, Ben Habib. Ben Habib.
So, I don't call them grooming gangs, I call them gang rape gangs. I used to call them grooming gangs until I was prompted in the last few days to read at some length the awful atrocities committed by these people. And in my view, the reason that they haven't been called to account is because the political, philosophical narrative which has gripped this country for the last 20 years is that somehow diversity is a strengthening of the United Kingdom, and that we should welcome in multitudes of foreigners with different ethnic backgrounds, different cultures, different sets of belief, that we shouldn't do anything to challenge them to integrate with our culture, and that they should be allowed to continue in their separate silos. And in fact, we should celebrate, promote them, etc., which is the DEI thing that you and I have discussed.
Multiculturalism.
Multiculturalism. And in the pursuit of multiculturalism, what the establishment has done is turn a blind eye to all adverse consequences of it. And the most egregious form that it has taken, that has expressed itself in, the most egregious example of it, is in the gang rape gangs, what they did. And out of fear of being called racist or xenophobic or whatever, the police, social services, local councils, some of these girls were sold in community centres, in council buildings, have literally turned their backs on it. And I totally understand the calling of an inquiry, but I don't think calling an inquiry goes far enough. What they need to do is task a particular part of the police to investigate this and make arrests for all people who've been complicit in this activity. And at the same time, the establishment needs to recognise that the regulatory and legal framework that gives protected status to these people promotes the two-tier must be reversed, set aside, so that the full glare of British justice is dispensed without fear or without favour of who you are. Justice has to be blind, and that has to be reasserted in our judicial system. And finally, to the extent that any of these individuals have a shared national identity, if that people say they're Pakistani. Well, if they've got Pakistani passports, send them back to Pakistan to face the full force of Pakistani sentencing for child rape, which is death by hanging.
You're part Pakistani?
I'm part. My father is Pakistani, and I know that in Pakistan, if you are found guilty of child abuse, it is a heinous crime in any part of the world, and the penalty is death by hanging. Send these people back to face their own justice.
But some of them were probably born here. Aaron Bastani.
So I did a few things, besides what Ben just said a moment ago. Keir Starmer, and I think I know him and his operation and his office perhaps better than you guys because I'm on the left of politics. They have very little time for the little people. Just in response to this communication in 2020 that was effectively ignored. They have no time for the little people. Keir Starmer had that extraordinary quip, didn't he, where he said he'd rather be on Davos than in Westminster. Forget Rotherham or Rochdale or Oldham. He doesn't even want to be in Westminster, even that's a little bit too low for him. And I feel that sentiment, when he expressed it at the time, and I think it even more now, shows a fundamental misunderstanding of where we are as a country and the kind of political moment we are now in. Since Brexit, the story of the UK and its politics has been outside the M25, right? And that really pivoted after 2016, I think. I think a lot of the media and political establishment woke up to the fact there is the rest of the country. And I think one of the reasons why this story, and it was widely reported in the media, particularly Rotherham and Rochdale, one of the reasons why it was a slow burn was because it happened outside the M25. And of course, there are other places where it's been reported far less, which are outside London. And so I think really Starmer's response to it in 2020 is of a piece with how it's been reported more broadly, which is for a very long time in this country, for too long, if it happened outside the M25, we don't really care.
Well, what do you think? gbnews.com/your say. This is GB News. Thank you, Aaron Bastani and Ben Habib. They'll join me very shortly, but still to come. Divorce Day tomorrow. I'll have some good tips on a very nice separation.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Millions are struggling to stay warm with the wet weather, the cost of living and, of course, cuts to fuel payments.
Yes, winter is fast approaching, so it's crucial to find cost-effective ways to save on your energy expenses whilst staying reasonably warm.
So joining us to provide advice on heating your home, or at least staying warm somehow, is one of the leading voices on lowering energy bills, Nick Miles. And you are very welcome in here this morning. I mean, a lot of people would say, well, in the olden days, you just used to put on an extra jumper. But actually, it's more serious than that, isn't it? What is the best way, the most cost-effective way to keep your home warm?
Some of the bigger things is we need to do more things on insulating our properties, but actually sometimes, it can be simple things like turning down a thermostat. Those that have got the luxury of being able to afford energy bills and keep their homes on the thermostat a bit too high. If you just turn it down by one simple degree, as long as you keep it between 18 and 22 degrees, can save up to 5 to 10% of your energy bill. So that's a kind of a very simple way of doing things. But, it can be other little tips and tricks you can do as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I always get it when people say about this, but like 18 degrees is not warm for a house.
No, and it's twofold actually. It's that kind of relative temperature, but also it's the kind of drafts and things you have in your house. So it's the comfort factor. So what we have a lot of old properties in our country. You've got some 8 million hard-to-treat properties built before World War II that have got poor insulation, but also very, very drafty. So it's the temperature and it's the kind of the draftiness of them that kind of keeps us uncomfortable.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support.
It's you that make us the People's Channel.
As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions, and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
So I thought I'd end the show fittingly on the subject of divorce, seeing as it looks like Farage and Musk are going that way, because tomorrow it marks the so-called divorce day, when couples supposedly rush to lawyers after having tense Christmas festivities together. But how do we have the elusive, amicable separation? Well, no worries, stay here, because I'm joined by divorce coach Sarah Davidson in the studio. Sarah, nice to see you.
Thanks for having me on again, Nana.
And we've got good sort of colours, because they kind of blend with the background, which is good. Well, listen, lots of people have been spending a lot of time together over Christmas. They're fed up and sick of each other, watching the other one chew, listening to the other one breathe. How did they get rid of each other in a nice way?
Well, there's lots of new ways, actually. The trends for 2024 have really shown a difference in the way people get divorced, and that is purely, I think, because of the cost of living crisis. People want to get divorced, but they can't afford to, which is why the divorce rate has plummeted over the last few years, actually. So what we're seeing is the rise of the no-split divorce. Have you heard of that one?
No, what is it?
So Paddy McGuinness and his ex Christine did it, where they live together in the same house, but they're formally legally divorced, but they're living together with the kids all in the house. Now, I think that might work for them because reportedly their house is worth £2.5 million.
Well, I was going to say, they've probably got one wing. You have that wing. It's probably effectively 10 houses all in one, but you'll have 5 and I'll have 5.
Exactly, so you've got enough space not to see each other if you don't want to. So, again, that helps. I guess if you're not amicable, that really isn't going to help. The other rise that we've seen is bird nesting. Have you heard of that one?
No, what's that? Sounds a bit weird.
Well, that's where the kids stay in the family home and it's the parents that come and go. So they're not living together, but they're coming in when the other parent leaves. So again, because obviously the cost of splitting 2 households, running 2 houses, especially with kids, if you need extra bedrooms, that's way too expensive for a lot of people now. So people are opting for different options, which means they can still get divorced, so you can get back out there and try and meet someone else or just move forward with your life, but you're not actually living in different homes.
So, because tomorrow is divorce day, the biggest day for the lawyers' calendar, where they're about to clean up on people who hate each other, so that's quite handy because it's going to cost them a lot of money.
Yeah.
What would you say? What advice to people if they're planning on, thinking of separating, divorcing?
Well, if you're thinking about it, try first to save your marriage, obviously, because not a lot of people know, but divorce is actually known as the second most traumatic life experience we go through after death of a loved one. So really difficult and emotional to go through, as well as financially expensive. So obviously it's a last resort, but if it's not working and you want to get out, then there are ways of doing it that are amicable. If you're divorcing someone that's not healthy, so toxic, narcissistic, abusive, then that is going to be a bit of a roller coaster of emotion. So get help, get support, and work out when you're going through it what you want from the future, because you cannot move towards something you can't see. So plan the future, get a vision of it, and that will really help you to move forward.
I say don't get married in the first place. Madness after madness. Ben and Beeb, you've been divorced, haven't you?
I have been divorced, and I completely endorse what Sarah says. If you can avoid it, don't do it. It's painful, it's expensive, it's emotionally tumultuous, and I had to give the nest away, which was at vast cost. So I recommend against divorce, and probably best not to get into marriage for fear of getting divorced.
He's happily married.
I love marriage, love family life. My wife earns more than me, so that helps. If we break up, I'll be the one pinching that. I'll be the one saying, look, 50-50, and +1 for me.
She'll have to pay you for the kids as well, you see.
That's it.
Yeah, I never married them because I thought I'd worked that out and thought I don't fancy doing that. Sarah Davidson, such a pleasure. Thank you very much for coming in and joining me. Thank you so much. Well, listen, on today's show, it's been a busy one. I've been asking you, is Nigel Farage fit to be the Reform UK leader? I'm just wondering, what do you think, Ben and Beeb? What percentage?
Well, unless Nigel changes dramatically...
Percentage-wise?
What percentage?
What percentage do you think people think?
Oh, people think. I would say most people watching GB News think. So I'd say 60-70% think he should be leader.
It's on X, actually, Aaron Bastani.
80%.
80%. And sorry, Davidson, quickly.
I'd say 85%.
85%. Well, listen, I've been asking, is Nigel Farage fit to be the Reform UK leader? And nearly 70% of you say yes. So most people think he is, and about 31% of you say no. Well, what do you think? I don't think much is going to change, and we've only got the other options, so maybe he's the best out of a bad bunch. But that's what do you think? gbnews.com/your say. Keep all of your thoughts coming. Thank you so much to my panel, co-founder of Novara Media, Aaron Bastani, and also former co-deputy chair leader of Reform UK, Ben Habib, and of course Sarah Davidson for joining me. And a huge thank you to you for your company. I look forward to seeing you same time, same place next week. I'll leave you with the weather.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. It remains on the cold side, looking ahead into next week. Further risk of rain, which should be heavy at times, but then turning drier, but perhaps some weather systems moving into the south. At the moment, though, low pressure dominating the weather pattern, bumping into that cold air. We've seen heavy snow push its way northwards, milder air pushing in, though, across southern counties, turning this to rain quite widely. Through this evening, further snow is expected across the higher ground, particularly northern England into southern Scotland. Further disruption possible as we head into Monday morning. Localised flooding as rain pushes eastwards across the rest of England and Wales. Overnight, icy stretches developing across Northern Ireland, Scotland. Further wintry showers here. So an unsettled start to Monday morning. Frequent snow showers pushing in across northern Scotland. Some icy stretches, so do take care if you are travelling. Some clearer skies across the central belt, but then across the borders region, some heavy snow. There could be some tricky travelling conditions, as well as parts of Northern Ireland, Northern England, seeing further snow in places too. Wintry showers for Wales. Elsewhere, generally cloudy, rain across some eastern counties pulling away through the morning. So mental risk warnings remain in force for Monday morning for snow and ice across northern parts of the UK. Through the day, colder air seeps its way back southwards to all areas, so a mixture of some bright spells, but largely cloudy and frequent wintry showers pushing in from the north, though mostly falling